Immortal Cultivation begins with time management. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326. Escape. Luo Yan reluctantly believed Mishi's judgment. Although this young lady is usually not very reliable, she is indeed blessed with good luck. At least she has never failed. Of course, although she can convince Luo Yan, she cannot convince the leader Xuelin. Now it seems that they can only go to Yue Island first, and then act according to the situation later, and run away if things don't go well. When everyone arrived at the sea area near Yue Island, they saw that Yue Island in the distance was not very big. The island plate on the water surface was crescent-shaped and hid sparse trees. Several cultivators flew up from the island and shouted at this side. The territory of Yue Island ahead, casual cultivators stop. As soon as the voice fell, Yu King Temple flew up the magic weapon flying sword and hit the cultivators with a crackling sound. The cultivator on the opposite side immediately used the 5 elements magic to attack back, and at the same time fought and quickly retreated to the sect's residence on the island. Luo Yan and Shilili were speechless watching from behind. It was an insult to the noobs to say that this was a fight between noobs. Master Xuelin ordered a pursuit, and everyone quickly put down the sword light and landed on the ground. Miss Xu was a little confused and asked Luo Yan quietly, "Can't we fly the sword? Why do we have to land on the ground? There is no cover in the air, and we can see everything at a glance. It is easy for the monks on the ground to lock on and focus their fire." Luo Yan explained. "But isn't the view in the air better?" Shili asked in confusion. Luo Yan didn't answer, thinking that if he was in Shushan, he would definitely leave a few people in the air to prevent the monks from taking off and running away. However, considering the average level of the monks in the East China Sea, he couldn't ask for too much. Everyone landed on Yue Island and quickly rushed into the station. Luo Yan and Shilili received the order from Master Xuelin, so they deliberately fell behind to avoid the battlefield conflict ahead. "I have a bad feeling," Shilili suddenly said. Luo Yan hurriedly stopped and looked around for a few minutes. Suddenly, he saw a large yellow light bursting in the distance. The light was so dazzling that Luo Yan couldn't help but think of his own 5 elements divine light: red, green, yellow, white, and black, and the yellow light of the earth element was also this color. However, judging from the intensity of the light, it seemed to be even stronger from a distance. He suddenly shuddered. If there was a hidden Jin anointing cultivator on Yue Island who had mastered the acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light and was lying in ambush in the sect's resident, and directly used the Divine Light to attack, how could Xuelin and his men resist it with their strength? Even if the number of people increased tenfold, it would be impossible to resist it. "Let's go." He hurriedly lowered his voice and said to Shilili, "Are you going to run away?" Shilili almost jumped up. In other words, Xuelin was in danger. Luo Yan didn't have time to explain to her, but quickly separated his divine thoughts and probed into the Tiangong 100 treasure bag for help. I'm dying, urgent, urgent, urgent." The Tiangong 100 treasure bag quickly ejected 2 objects, which were caught by Luo Yan and Shilili respectively. Shilili got a shuttle-shaped magic weapon. Luo Yan took a look and said happily, "This is the earth-piercing divine shuttle. It's perfect for escaping underground. What do you have in your hand?" Shilili was delighted when she heard that. Luo Yan got a pill bottle. He opened the pill bottle and smelled it for a while, and his face immediately turned black. Damn, another tranquilizing pill. He didn't have time to argue with the spirit of the heavenly craftsmanship. He just urged Mishi to activate the earth-piercing divine shuttle, swallow that 2 of them, and then turned around and rushed down, drilling into the soil, and disappeared in a flash. After a while, a large group of Yue Island monks arrived here. "There should be 2 more people here just now," a cultivator said. "When the 2 collapse mountain ray was activated, we sensed that there were 2 outsiders here, but after the Yu King Temple cultivators were killed, the 2 disappeared. There are traces of earth escape at the scene." Another cultivator checked the ground for a moment and frowned. "Only earth escape can get out of the 2 collapse mountain ray. Is it a spell? It may be an earth escape magic weapon." The surroundings were silent for a moment, and the world was so quiet that it seemed that only the sound of the rolling tide remained. "Li Ancient Treasure House!" someone suddenly shouted. This sound awakened the dreamers, and almost all the cultivators on Yue Island changed their faces and hurriedly flew away at full speed on their swords. Li Ancient Treasure House is rumored to have been built by a great man in ancient times. His name is Thongtine Emperor, who lived in Mojao Mountain in Yangzhou for generations. Later, he ascended to heaven and shattered the void and left. It is said that he left 2 treasure houses, Li Mansion and Kism, to the world. What is not known is that the Li Ancient treasure house was discovered by the monks of Yue Island about a year ago in the underground of the nearby sea area. If Yue Island continues to submit to Penglai and informs this information, then with the fatherly style of the monks of Yu King Temple, they will definitely take the Li Ancient treasure house for themselves and not let the monks of Yue Island have a share. Therefore, on the night when the Li Ancient treasure house was discovered, an internal fight broke out within Yue Island, and the matter was completely sealed at the cost of all the high-level devs being killed. Due to the mechanism problem of the Li Ancient treasure house, there is no possibility of being emptied at one time. Therefore, the monks of Yue Island plan to withdraw all the sects to the South China Sea after the rebellion in the East China Sea, and erase all traces of the Li Ancient treasure house, and temporarily seal it up for the future. But if it is discovered by the monks of Yu King Temple, don't mention the future. From now on, Yue Island will never get involved in the Li Ancient treasure house again. Just as the monks of Yue Island were flying towards the entrance of Li Ancient treasure house, Shilui had already driven the Earth shuttle and took Lu Yam to the depths of the seabed. Shilui suddenly said from inside the shuttle, "Why can't you drill any more? Drill a little deeper, and after entering the seabed, you can level the direction." Lu Yan was still a little confused, and pointed out, "Earth escape can't touch water, so you must make sure that the shuttle is on the seabed and not in the sea." "No." Shilui replied, "I was controlling the shuttle to go down just now, but suddenly it couldn't drill anymore. Could it be that we encountered some mineral deposits on the seabed?" Lu Yan was also a little puzzled. Earth escape can't penetrate metal mineral deposits either. "I don't know, I'll try another direction," Shilui said. "It's a restriction." The Kunlun mirror in the Sea of Consciousness suddenly said, "That's the space restriction that separates the secret realm from the outside world." Lu Yan. Could it be the outer restriction of the secret realm? He tried to pretend to be incredible and shouted. Shilui was also slightly stunned for a moment, and then showed a look of great surprise. "Secret realm, huh? Get in." She injected all her true energy into the divine shuttle and pushed it forward. Of course, it didn't work. "Sister, this should be a space restriction," Lu Yan reminded. "It's unlikely to break through by relying on Earth escape." "Really?" Mishi also remembered. The so-called space restriction, either find the entrance reserved by the predecessor who set the restriction, or use the same space-type magic weapon to forcibly break it. "Then do we have to find the entrance?" she asked eagerly. "No need." Lu Yan touched his storage bag and took out a shuttle-shaped magic weapon. It was the one he got from the Gaiku Palace last time. The name of the Longkailan Kun Universe Creation Tianu Divine Shuttle has the ability to teleport over short distances. He threw the Tianu Divine Shuttle into the air, and it replaced the Divine Shuttle and ragged the two of them in it. Then, the Tianji Divine Shuttle trembled slightly for a moment, and then suddenly disappeared. Chapter 327 Li Ancient Treasure House, Earth Maze. After putting away the Tianji Divine Shuttle, Lu Yan looked around again and found that he and Shilui were in an underground space. Looking closely, it seemed to be a maze. The top wall above the head, the ground under their feet, and the surrounding walls were all impenetrable rocks. Shilui tried the earth-clearing Divine Shuttle and found that he could not penetrate the stone wall of the maze. This is also natural. Any secret realm that restricts the route will basically restrict the 5 elements escape technique. Otherwise, everyone will just run around with the escape technique, and there will be no point in any maze. "Senior sister, don't worry." Lu Yan took the earth-clearing Divine Shuttle and stuffed it back into the Tiangong treasure bag. This is also what Elder Shiding specifically told him. The magic weapon taken out of the treasure bag must be stuffed back so that it can be used next time. Even in the world of cultivation, it is necessary to unswervingly implement a sustainable development strategy. The two explored here for a while and confirmed that this place is indeed a maze. The route is complicated, with forks everywhere, and there are no landmarks. The only thing you can rely on seems to be your own memory. "Sister, don't worry," Lu Yan immediately said confidently, "leave the memory of the route to me. I'm not worried about not being able to get out." Shilui said worriedly, "What worries me is where this maze leads to." That's true, Lu Yan thought to himself. If you can't get through this maze and get the corresponding adventure or treasure, what's the point of memorizing the route? Are you worried about not being able to get out? What you are worried about is entering the secret realm and returning empty-handed. As for exploring the maze, Luo Yan's talent of hearing 1,000 things is useless. But he suddenly remembered that he seemed to have another cheat. A Jing. Luo Yan called in his heart, "Help me scan." Got it. Kumlin Jing's voice was not surprising, as if he had expected him to ask for help. This maze is a bit big, wait a minute. Luo Yan let Kumlin Jing scan first, and he played the maze with Mishi first. After walking for about 3/4 of an hour, Kumlin Mirror finally responded. Yuan's Yu, I have good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? The bad news first. Luo Yan said without hesitation. The bad news is that this maze has 49 exits. Kumlin Mirror replied. Luo Yan. Wait, this maze has more than one exit? This design is unreasonable. Oh, but think about it carefully, no one stipulates that a maze can only have one exit. The good news is. Kumlin Mirror said slowly, I suspect that of the 49 exits of this maze, only one leads to the outside world, and the rest all led to secret treasures. You mean, this secret realm has 49 treasures? Luo Yan asked in surprise. Maybe it's a treasure room, maybe it's a secret realm, who knows? Kumlin Mirror said indifferently, the structure and route of this maze will change regularly over time, but the positions of the 49 exits are constant. It's a very clever spatial design, and it also combines arithmetic theory. I suspect this is the Lianchin Treasure House. Lianchin Treasure House? Luo Yan thought carefully for a moment and said in surprise, if this is the Lianchin Treasure House, it's even more advanced than the Palace Secret Realm. As we all know, the further back in the historical timeline, the more chaotic and harsh the living environment of the cultivation world becomes, the stronger the average quality of the cultivators becomes, and the more advanced the cultivation resources left behind are. The Lianchin Treasure House, which originated in ancient times, is more precious and rare than the East Sea Palace, the Queen Mother of the West Secret Realm, and so on in ancient times. In this way, this Lianchin Treasure House is of great exploration value. He was discussing excitedly with Kumlin Mirror, while Mishi was impatient and took out a copper coin to tell a fortune. The exit is in the northeast. Shili waved her arm, go forward. When she encountered a fork in the road, she deliberately walked to the northeast. As a result, the passage turned to the north, and then to the northwest. Mishi was so angry that she drew out a Zhejiang Yuan sword and slashed at the stone wall passage as if to vent her anger. Senior sister, do you want to go to the northeast? Luo Yan, who had been following her, suddenly asked. Yeah. Shili restrained her anger and nodded. According to the hexagram, the northeast is auspicious. I see. Luo Yan asked Kumlin Mirror to project a small map for him. Why don't I lead the way this time? Okay. Shili was a little tired at walking through the maze, so she asked Luo Yan to lead the way for her. Luo Yan quickly scanned the map and soon sorted out a route. After walking with Mishi for a while, Shili suddenly asked, Junior brother, I want to go to the northeast, why are you going all the way to the northwest? Senior sister, if you want to go to the northeast, you have to go around the northwest first. Luo Yan smiled. Shili kept silent, thinking that since it was his junior brother who led the way, if he couldn't reach the exit, I would laugh at him. After walking for a while, Kumlin Mirror suddenly said, someone is approaching. Who? Luo Yan immediately became alert, those monks from Weir Island. Yes. Kumlin Mirror replied, there seems to be a monk who is good at magic in their team, and he is calculating your position in the maze. Yeah. Luo Yan sneered, just magic calculation, do you think you can use it to hunt me down? A Jin, cover up the secret for me. Kumlin Mirror finally couldn't help it and said, that's no problem, but can you, not say it as if you were showing off your power? I'm doing all the chores for you. A Jin. Luo Yan asked in surprise, you don't want me to help you find the Gutian stone? Of course I want it, forget it. Kumlin Mirror sighed. Forget it, for the sake of the Gutian stone, I won't bother with him. It made some operations here, and the monks of Weir Island not far from the maze suddenly stopped. This is not right. The monk in charge of leading the way frowned and shouted. Why is it wrong? A monk asked hurriedly. There is something wrong with this result. The monk was sweating profusely while operating the compass, but he only saw the needle on it spinning around, sometimes to the east, sometimes to the north, and it couldn't stabilize at all. Is your magic calculation device broken? The other monks were immediately shocked. They don't have a strong enough memory. If they get lost in the maze, they won't be able to get out for a while. In addition, the maze of Lianchin Treasure House will change its route over time. If you're unlucky, you may be trapped here for hundreds of years. It's not broken, it's interfered with. The monk of the magic calculation said with a sad face and despair, and the realm difference is too big. I am completely suppressed by the other party and can't maintain the calculation at all. So the entire Weir Island monk team was in a mess. Chapter 328. Can't say it clearly. Absorbing European key. After trapping the monks from Weir Island deep in the maze, Luoyang continued to move forward with Shiluli. The small map given by Arjun was really convenient. As long as they followed the route marked on the map, they could successfully reach the exit in the northeast direction. As he stared in amazement, the route of the maze suddenly changed. To be precise, except for the small area where Luoyang, Shiluli, and the monks from Weir Island were located, the maze structure in the rest of the area suddenly changed. It was all messed up. The structure and route became completely different. The original route was to go northwest first, bypass the large impassable area in the north, and then turn to the northeast. Now if they continue to go northwest, they can't get around to the northeast at all, and they have to turn around. Luoyang turned his head quietly and saw Mishi looking at him with her arms folded, with a pretty and bright smile on her face, as if saying, "Junior brother, you continue to lead the way." Jing. He could only whisper in his sea of consciousness, "Why didn't you tell me that this maze would actually change? You didn't ask me either." Kunlun Mirror looked very aggrieved, "And this is my first time here too. The previous scan only found that it has the ability to change its structure regularly, but how can I know when it changes? In that case, your map is useless from the beginning." Luoyang said angrily, "What's the point of projecting a map that changes to me? You took the initiative to ask me to lead the way and asked me to project it to you." Kunlun Mirror said aggrievedly. Luoyang. "Wait, is that so? You still dare to quibble, you broken mirror?" Luoyang was too lazy to reason with it, and said angrily, "Putting aside the facts, now we have to go to the exit in the northeast direction, and I can only turn around with Miss Shi. If I say this, she will definitely despise me severely." Then, Kunlun Mirror said cautiously, "Why don't we just take her to the nearest exit and lie to her that this is the northeast? Is she the kind of person who can't tell a difference between east, south, west and north?" Luoyang asked back. "Or I can cast an illusion on her to confuse her sense of direction." Kunlun Mirror tried to remedy the situation. Luoyang was silent for a long time, and asked in a complicated tone, "Jin, when did you become so despicable?" Kunlun Mirror was stunned for a long time, and suddenly let out a terrified scream, then sank into the sea of consciousness and remained silent. Luoyang wanted to say something, but suddenly Shiluli hugged his shoulders. "Can't find the way." Miss Shi said proudly, "Junior brother, I see you have been standing here for a long time, you should just admit defeat." "Okay, senior sister." Luoyang immediately gave up and pretended to be helpless. "I was obviously walking to the northeast, how come I went to the northwest? Let me lead the way." Shiluli said excitedly, "First of all, it is definitely wrong to continue forward, we have to turn around." "Ah, right, Luoyang complained in his heart, "let's see where Miss Shi will take him." The two turned around and set foot on the road they came from, and finally arrived at the first fork. Luoyang glanced at the map, and sure enough, the way he came here had changed. "If you want to go to the northeast exit, you should turn left here." He was thinking gloomily, and saw Shiluli flip his right hand, take out 6 copper coins, throw them into the sky, and then catch them in a cool way. Divination. "Go right!" she shouted excitedly. No, go right to the southern exit." Luoyang looked at the small map of Kunlun Mirror, and felt like he already knew the ending of that plot, but there was no way to spoil it, which made people scratch their heads. Shiluli was full of confidence. At the next few intersections, she either went right or left, and turned directly from the south back to the west, going in the opposite direction. Luoyang finally couldn't help but remind him, "Senior sister, are we going west?" "What are you talking about?" Shiluli looked at him as if he was a fool. "This is obviously the east, okay?" Luoyang. "No way. You even got the direction wrong. How can someone who can get the direction wrong walk through a maze?" Luoyang gnashed his teeth in anxiety, but finally decided to force himself to comfort himself. After all, this maze has 49 exits, and it is not necessary to go to the northeast one. Anyway, senior sister led the way, and I just need to lie down. Shiluli was in high spirits and didn't even know that she was going west. Luoyang followed her silently, looking at the map projected by Kunlun Mirror with empty eyes, thinking that if we couldn't go to the east, unless this world of cultivation is also round, let's go around the world to the west. In Luoyang's dumbfounded eyes, he saw that the structure of the maze had changed again. The original route to the west exit was blocked, and to get there, you have to go around from the south. The two came to a new intersection again, no different from the previous intersection. Shirley also cast a hexagram as usual, and then turned to the north. Continue to go around. Every time you encounter an intersection, Shirley casts a hexagram, then goes right, straight, right, left, straight, and actually a right at the northeast exit. Luoyan. What a jinn, what map, what sense of direction, are they useful? As long as my Mishi speaks, black can become white, east can become west, there is nothing that cannot be changed by strong luck. You see. Shirley said proudly, I know this is, senior sister. Luoyan suddenly hugged her and sucked her wildly. Yeah. Shirley screamed as if a deer was attacked, and hurriedly pushed his shoulders hard, although she didn't use much strength at all. Junior brother, what are you doing? Don't get so close to me. Let me suck your lug. Go away. Go away. Shirley shouted shyly, and kept hitting him with her pink fists. The push just now was not very strong, but the punches were quite fierce, so Luoyan quickly let go of Mishi, grimacing in pain and begging for mercy. After saying a lot of nice things, Shirley finally forgave him and hummed. I told you, there will be no problem with me leading the way. Yes, there will be no problem if you leave it to me, senior sister. Luoyan smiled flatteringly. Next, we have to see what treasures are inside. Shirley was excited to move forward, but Luoyan grabbed her arm again. Senior sister, do you want to calculate again what good things are inside? Or just guess based on your hunch? Shirley was a little confused, so she said casually, I suddenly feel that I don't lack anything. I have magic weapons and immortal swords. She suddenly clapped her hands and shouted. That's right. Purple Mansion secret medicine. I feel that there must be Purple Mansion secret medicine inside. Luoyan was so excited the tears welled up in his eyes, and he quickly followed Shirley to push the door out. After leaving the maze, the two entered the room. Around the room, there were tables and cabinets, filled with all kinds of treasures, shining brightly, almost dazzling. At the same time, a loud voice sounded in the hearts of the two people. After 10 breaths, the treasure house will close automatically. Before the voice fell, Mishi had not yet reacted. Luoyan had already rushed out first. His target was a golden lotus in the flower bed on the stone table in the west of the room. Yochai Golden Lotus. Chapter 329 Returning to Penglai, Shocking the Master. Yochai Golden Lotus. A lotus head has 12 lotus seeds. Taking it can open some acupoints in the body, which increases the efficiency of breathing and refining. To put it bluntly, the upgrade speed will be permanently faster. Nothing can be seen in the short term, but if the time span is extended to hundreds of years, the effect will be very impressive. But the real precious thing is not the Yochai lotus seeds, but the Yochai Golden Lotus itself. The golden lotus will wither immediately when it leaves the Yochai water, so it is more difficult to preserve. The lotus seeds can be stored for a long time, so the latter's effect is widely known. But if you can get a living golden lotus, take the petals or a fine medicine, the effect is much better than lotus seeds. It can directly cleanse the veins and marrow, cleanse the soul, and perfect the purple palace. Luoyan pounced on the side of the stone table, not thinking about whether he could transplant it, but just pinched the golden lotus calyx with his left hand, brushed it with his right hand a few times, and then tore off 3 petals and stuffed them into his mouth. Then he tore off the remaining 3 petals and stuffed them into the mouth of Mishi behind him. Shirley was about to ask when Luoyan stuffed her mouth with it. The petals melted in her mouth and turned into a fragrant and delicious juice. Before she could chew, they flowed into her throat, and the spiritual energy in her stomach almost overflowed. It's delicious. Shirley's eyes lit up, and she looked at the Yochai Golden Lotus again. There was only a bare calyx left. At this time, 3 breaths had passed, and Luoyan had no time to talk nonsense with her. He just quickly swept his eyes across the room. Damn. There is actually worth true essence. He rushed to the north again and reached out to take the dark grey stone on the table. As a result, he found that it was 1,000 pounds heavy and he couldn't lift it. You have to know that worth true essence is different from worth true vein. The latter is lowly and wet soil without dirt. Although it is fine and soft, it can expand infinitely and is inexhaustible. The former is mountain soil. A small piece is equivalent to the layers of mountains that stretch for thousands of miles. Luoyan naturally can't pick it up with one hand. However, he had the gift of hearing thousands of things, so he was naturally quick-witted. He immediately pulled off the Tiangong by Bahu bag from his waist, and put it on the Wutu's Yuan with his backhand, and put it in. Even if I can't lift it, the Tiangong by Bahu bag can definitely hold it. 5 breaths had passed by then, and Shilili barely reacted. He quickly threw out the protective magic weapon, Gao Chen Xingza, which turned into a streamer in the air and rolled up the things on the table in the south. Everything that could be rolled was put into the storage bag. Luo Yan was not as rude as her. You know, the truly precious things, such as Yokai Jinlin and Wutu's Yuan, cannot be taken by flying swords or magic weapons. He just turned to the east again, swept his eyes like a hawk, and pounced again. In the center of the table, on the stone shelf, there was a flying sword. The sword body was dark yellow, and the lines were like roots. It did not have the sharp luster of ordinary metals, but it had a unique ancient and profound aura. The whole sword is also larger than ordinary flying swords, about 3 feet and 8 inches long, about 4 fingers wide, and the sword spine is also thick. Of course, none of this is important. What is important is that this sword is placed in the center of the east table. Considering that the golden lotus of Yuchai is in the center of the west table and the true essence of worth is in the center of the north table, it is also a reasonable guess to think that all good things are placed in the center of the storage table. Luo Yan reached out to take it, but he couldn't take it. The sword was like a magnet, firmly sucking itself on the stone shelf, and there was no intention for Luo Yan to pick it up. Luo Yan was anxious and called out in his heart, "Kingping." The Kingping sword snorted coldly in his body, and the sword on the table suddenly rang. Luo Yan took the opportunity to reach out again. Just as he grasped the hilt of the sword, 10 breaths had passed. The two felt dizzy and soon they were back in the outside world. Let's go. Luo Yan didn't have time to check what he had obtained. He just held the Chuan Huang heavy sword upside down with his right hand and reached into the Tiangong by Bahu bag with his left hand. Soon he took out an object, which turned out to be a wooden whale. It fell into the water and grew to 10 feet in an instant. It swallowed Luo Yan and Shilili into its stomach, and then swam quickly to the north. After an unknown amount of time, the whale spit the two out of the air. Luo Yan and Shilili looked carefully and found that they were already in the southern waters of Penglai Island. Luo Yan collected the wooden whale, and then flew back to the Yuking Wanton workshop with Shilili. Elder Shiding was working in the workshop, and was shocked to see the two suddenly return. Father. Shilili threw herself into his arms and cried aggrievedly, "My daughter almost couldn't come back." What happened? Elder Shiding asked in a deep voice. Shilili immediately described in detail the ambush of the Yukingyon monks by the Ur Island monks, which made Elder Shiding tremble with fear. The Ur Island has been in decline for many years. Who would have known that they have been playing dumb and secretly preparing to give Yuking Temple a big blow? It was the formation that wiped out the Shulian master. According to Shilili's description and the judgment of Elder Shidin, it should be the Wutu Collapse Mountain formation. This formation is one of the strongest killing formations in the innate 5 elements formation. Ur Island has never revealed any news before, which means that they have even trained formation masters in secret. Setting up the formation in the East China Sea, not looking for the Yuking Templetian workshop, secretly training formation masters. What do you mean, Ur Island? Ulterior motives. Plotting against the law. Fortunately, my daughter and Luo Yan are fine and returned safely. As for the Shulian master who was wiped out, we can only report to the Chuandu sect master and ask him to send people to investigate later. Elder Shiding was thinking quietly when he heard Luo Yan continue to talk along with Shilili's words. My senior sister and I used the divine shuttle given by the Tiangong treasure bag to escape all the way down until we hit an invisible wall and were unable to go deeper. I suddenly had an idea and wondered if this was the outer restriction of the secret realm. So I took out the Tianu divine shuttle and went in with just one try. Where did you go? Elder Shiding trembled with shock on his face. How could you escape to the secret realm? Li ancient treasure house. Luo Yan said with a smile. The next second, Elder Shiding's face turned from white to blue, and from blue to red. His eyes gradually widened, his breathing became rapid, and even the blue veins on his neck collapsed. What did you say? He asked in disbelief. Junior brother said it was the Li ancient treasure house. Shilili shouted. Li ancient treasure house. Elder Shiding almost bit his tongue, and calmed down after a long while. He frowned and asked, besides you two, does anyone else know about this? I suspect that the monks from Ur Island have always known about this. Luo Yan told Elder Shiding about the monks from other sects he had noticed in the maze. Elder Sheding listened in silence, and then he knew why the monks from Weir Island suddenly attacked this time. Ignoring Misha, who was yelling, "Hey, why didn't I notice it?" He thought deeply for a long time before slowly saying, "I will report this to the temple and give you credit. You must not disclose the information of this trip to anyone, including the death of Master Shualin." Luo Yan sighed in his heart, knowing that his master was going to take the news to exchange for benefits with the top leaders of Yu King Temple. To be honest, if only my senior sister and I knew about it, then hiding the information about the Li Ancient Treasure House would be a better way to monopolize it. But since the monks of Weir Island also know the location of Li Ancient Treasure House, they must report the news to the temple and ask them to guard the entrance to the treasure house. Otherwise, Weir Island will get the advantage. He was thinking silently when he heard Shillelagh say happily, "By the way, father, my junior brother and I took a lot of good things from the treasure house. Can you help us identify them?" Chapter 330. Eloquent, Luo Yan's mouthpiece. Although Luo Yan could understand Mishi's sudden action, he sneered in his heart. She always said, "Daddy, help me," and even showed off to Daddy when she got a treasure. "Where did you come from?" Shillelagh was unaware of it, but happily poured out all the things she got from the secret room of Li Ancient Treasure House to show off to her father. Elder Sheding was even happier than Shillelagh, and he reviewed the things one by one. Feng Xi and the Wang, a protective magic weapon, is better than your magic weapon that imitates the Nine Dragons' divine fire cover. The Chuan Huang Jade document is both a magic weapon and a jade slip. It should contain some ancient information, well, some geographical information. The Jade Sutra Thong Sui Pill, this is rare. It is used to eliminate the inner demons and break through the bottleneck. This pill is perfect. After appraising everything, Shillelagh became complacent and signaled Luo Yan with his eyes, asking him to take out the things. Luo Yan laughed in his heart, and said obediently, "Okay, senior sister." Yokai Golden Lotus had already been eaten, so there was no need to take it out. He took out Watu's Jinyuan first and showed it to his master. "This is Watu's Jinyuan." Elder Sheding said in surprise, "As far as I know, this thing can only be found with a very low probability in the far west, thousands of feet underground under the mountains. Even a grain of soil can be equivalent to the weight of a mountain. If it is refined into a flying sword, or used as a seal to hit people, it can act 1,000 pounds of force. My disciple plans to use it to set up an array." Luo Yan leads skillfully. Earth collapse mountain formation. Elder Sheding nodded, "All right, it's more suitable for you than refining weapons." Luo Yan put away the earth essence, took out the Chuan Wang heavy sword, and said, "Master, I don't recognize this sword, you see, her." Elder Sheding took the heavy sword, carefully stroked and examined it for a moment, and said solemnly, "If I'm not mistaken, this sword seems to be the sword used by the Yellow Emperor in the past, called Wang Tim Kung sword." Wang Tim Kung sword? Luo Yan and Shillelagh looked at each other. Neither of them had seen this name in any classics. In the past, Emperor Wangdi led his army to fight against Ku and camped at the foot of Mount Kun. Elder Sheding said slowly, "In order to get water, they dug 100 feet into the ground but did not see any springs, only sparks like stars. Later, he sent people to dig here, refine stone into copper, and refine copper into swords. Normally, its color is dark yellow, but it turns red when stimulated by true energy, and turns green when the energy is exhausted." As he spoke, Elder Sheding poured his true energy into it, and sure enough, he saw the heavy sword turn red. Because this sword was worn by the Yellow Emperor, people have misinterpreted it as the Chuan Yuan sword. Elder Sheding said at last, returning the Wang Tim sword to Luo Yan. "In terms of rank, this sword can compete with Kunlun's Chifeng Wang sword, but the prerequisite is that it must recognize its master. If it can't recognize its master, it's no better than any other iron weapon. You need to solve this problem yourself." Luo Yan took the Wang Tim sword with conviction and said seriously, "Disciple will work hard." Seeing this, Shillelagh next to him suddenly said, "Actually, I can help, Luo." Elder Sheding said sternly, "Even if it's about taking treasures, it's based on first come first served, and those who are destined to get it will get it." Shillelagh was about to explain when she heard Luo Yan say with a smile, "Master, senior sister must be thinking that if I can't make the Wang Tim sword recognize its master, she would also like to help." "That's what I'm saying." Shillelagh said aggrievedly, "I just want to help my junior brother, not to steal his sword, and my father is thinking badly of me." Elder Sheding said impatiently, "Luo Yan, don't protect her too much. With the preference of Wang Tim's sword, it is absolutely impossible to recognize her as the master. Luo, don't waste your time, let your junior brother handle it." I know. Shirley said with tears in her eyes, and ran away in a blink of an eye. Master. Luoyang said helplessly, I will go to persuade senior sister. Alas. Elder Shiding waved his hand tiredly, go. After Luoyang left, Elder Shiding turned around, put his hands behind his back, and sighed faintly. Now the trend of chaos in the world has begun to emerge, Luoyang. When can you let your father worry less? Shirley ran back to the room, covered herself with the quilt and cried for a while, only to hear Luoyang knocking on the door outside and asking, Senior sister, are you there? No. Shirley said loudly. Then I'll come in. Luoyang pushed the door open and saw Mishi hiding her head in the quilt, like a silly ostrich. Sister. Luoyang sat down beside her and said with a smile, Master is really too worried. Senior sister, how could you have any bad intentions? Shirley ignored him and continued to cry in the quilt, with her slender shoulders twitching. Sister, why don't you explain it to Master? Luoyang used the method of asking questions even though he knew the answer. Shirley was really fooled, and she cried and complained. Daddy, will he listen to me? He only believes in you anyway. Sister, listen to me. Seeing this, Luoyang wanted to reason with her, but Mishi was not a person who would listen to reason. She immediately covered her head and got into the quilt, shouting, I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen. Luoyang was so anxious that he quickly hugged her, suddenly being hugged by his junior brother. Her body suddenly stiffened and she didn't move anymore. Listen to me. Luoyang anxiously turned her over and said solemnly, although the master misunderstood you, that just shows one reason, that is, the master has very high expectations of you. It is precisely because you are his most cherished and proud daughter that he has such strict moral requirements for you, fearing that you will make a mistake. Wow. This person. In the sea of consciousness, Kumlan Mirror and Kingping Sword both exclaimed in surprise, and the tone sounded like shock, admiration, and some other indescribable emotions. Shirley showed her head from the quilt, her black hair was scattered and draped over her shoulders, and there were traces of tears on her pretty face. Really? Of course it's true. Luoyang said seriously. Why do you say it's true? You are not him. Shirley muttered softly, but Luoyang knew that she believed it 80%. It's more real than the 5 elements true veins. Senior sister, if you don't believe me, please look into my eyes. Luoyang held her hands sincerely. A person may lie to you with words, but his eyes will not lie. Shirley stared at his eyes blankly. At this moment, the temperament illusion of the hypocritical persona was running at full speed, and the synchronization value almost exploded. Then, Shirley drooped her shoulders and wiped her tears aggrievedly. Then how should I explain to my father? Don't worry. Luoyang pressed her hands on his chest and said gently, leave everything to me. Chapter 331 Refining Yang's the human pill. After taking care of Mishi, Luoyang began to check his harvest. First, there was the Yochai Golden Lotus. After eating this thing, 1 petal gave Luoyang 10 years of cultivation in the Watfu, and 3 petals gave him 30 years of cultivation. Of course, this also meant that Luoyang gave Mishi 30 years of cultivation. Not giving it away was definitely not possible. After all, a Yochai Golden Lotus grew there, and Luoyang had to eat it all in front of Shirley. Even if Mishi was stupid and didn't understand, if she went back and told Elder Shiding about it, the two would definitely come to their senses. Luoyang decided to find an opportunity to ask Elder Shiding what the Yochai Golden Lotus was, and then calmly mentioned his contribution in dividing Mishi's 3 petals. Secondly, there was the worth true essence. As mentioned earlier, Luoyang relied on the acquired 5 elements true veins obtained in the East Sea Palace to cultivate the acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light. This is not the limit of the 5 elements divine light. If you can obtain the innate 5 elements true essence and refine it again, you can evolve the acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light into the innate 5 elements Great Chaos Divine Light. The acquired one emphasizes endless life, which is the category of skill. The innate one represents the vastness, which is the category of power. From the level of skill, evolving to the realm of power, the power can almost make a huge qualitative leap. In the underground ruins of Jirizhou and Zi Islands, Luoyang obtained the Rinshua true essence from the Rinshua locking dragon formation. After refining it, the Blackwater attribute divine light has undergone a qualitative change. Now, he has obtained the Wuta true essence. He only needs to follow that god and refine it in the 5 elements divine light to make the Eloworth attribute divine light promoted. As for the remaining 3 true essences, Ling Yunbo once saw a trace of the great sun true yang fire, that is, the Bingmo true essence, in the depths of the Fire Yuan cave in Shushan. However, at the time, he had to take the Purple Palace secret medicine, Mercury Dahua liquid first, so he was unable to exchange the Bingro's Yuan. He still had to find an opportunity later. The third one was the Wang Kun sword, which was the Chuan Yuan sword that was praised by later generations. As the sword of the Yellow Emperor, this thing was naturally of an absurdly high rank. It was said that it was comparable to the Chifeng sword of Ziwi's sect master, and it was undoubtedly an 11th level super fairy sword. The only problem was that it seemed unwilling to recognize itself as its master. This was normal. He had not even reached the Golden Core realm, so why should the 11th level fairy sword recognize its master? Luo Yan wondered if he could let the Kingping sword teach him a lesson, just like it did to the Lizi sword. The fourth one was the Yangxia Huming Pill and Yin Humans and water that he got from the White Bone Palace underground in Longshan last time. Fish and Yaksha said that these two things could increase the cultivation of the Wafu by 100 years, provided that they were refined at the same time. Luo Yan certainly didn't believe everything it said. What if his body exploded after drinking it? Another problem is that Yangxia Huming Pill must be obtained from the Absolute Yang land, which is too rare. Taking the two together, using the Yin poison of Yin Humans and water to attack the Yang poison of Yangxia Huming Pill, this solution is even more incredible, and there is no record of it in the classics. On the contrary, some high-level pure Yang magic weapons must be refined with Yangxia Huming Pill. Therefore, for the sake of safety, Luo Yan did not intend to take it to ask Ziwi's sect leader, but confirmed it by himself, lest Ziwi's sect leader would not let him take the risk of taking it, and took it away to refine magic weapons. When I find a suitable way to take it, I will find a way to give the other one to junior sisters Yu. I also have to think of an explanation for why the thing that was taken away by Weimogen is in my hands, which is really a headache. Luo Yan came to the Dozan Pavilion and basically checked all the information related to the Absolute Yang land. The so-called Absolute Yang land does not mean that it is completely isolated from Yanqi, but that there is extremely majestic Yanqi around, so that it is difficult to find the existence of Yanqi. They are oppressed in a cramped corner. Due to the long-term compression of the vast amount of Yanqi, the only Yanqi will become extremely pure, the impure ones will be annihilated, and finally it will turn into a pill, which is the Yangxia Huming Pill. There is an old saying in Taoism, lone Yang cannot produce, and alone Yang cannot grow, which means that only Yanqi cannot make all things survive. But if there is only Yanqi, the environment is too violent, which will also damage the growth of all things. Taking Yangxia Huming Pill is definitely harmful to the body, this is certain. But if it is taken together with Yin Humans and water, can it eliminate the toxicity of lone Yang? Arjun, Kingping. Luo Yan called out in his heart, "Don't be in a daze, come and help me figure it out." "What do you mean by being in a daze?" Kunlun Mirror said dissatisfiedly, "I'm discussing with it, okay? In theory, with the Yin Humans and water, the condition that Yang cannot grow alone is no longer satisfied." Kingping Sword analyzed, but the question is, how to refine them together? If you don't refine it properly, and the Yin Humans and water is exhausted first, the remaining medicinal power of the Yangxia Huming Pill will inevitably begin to cause harm to you. That's natural. Luo Yan nodded without hesitation, but the correct method of refining has never been recorded in the classics. According to the classics, Yin Humans and water is also toxic. To be precise, it is poisonous to the flesh, but it has the ability to nourish the soul. I do have an idea. Kunlun Mirror suddenly said, "Why don't you try wrapping the Yangxia Huming Pill with Yin Humans and water? And then slowly peel out the Yanqi from it." "Oh?" Luo Yan's eyes lit up, and he understood what she meant effortlessly, just like peeling an onion, right? "What is an onion?" Kunlun Mirror asked curiously. "Well, it's okay." Luo Yan forgot that there were no onions in this world. "What I mean is, use Yin Humans and water and Yangxia Huming Pill to offset each other, and then slowly, layer by layer, peel off the pure Yang energy of Yangxia Huming Pill, right?" "Yes." Kunlun Mirror said reservedly, "I think this is feasible. That is to say, you need to perfectly control the form of Yin Humans and water in your TC." Kingping Sword also said eagerly, "I can help you with this." "That's great." Luo Yan was overjoyed. "In that case, I'll try to refine it first. If it doesn't work, just spit it out quickly." Kunlun Mirror said with concern. Luo Yan went to find a quiet room for practicing martial arts nearby, and then took out the pill bottle containing Yin Humans and water. He stared at the pill bottle for a moment, then took a deep breath, and suddenly threw the Yangxia Huming Pill into it. The pill entered the water, and the latter immediately began to boil. However, Luo Yan did not hesitate. With a look of fearlessness, he lifted the pill bottle and poured it directly into his mouth. He swallowed the inhumans and water that contained the Yangtze human pill in one gulp. Chapter 332. Read the file of Waymojin and complete the closed loop. The inhumans and water was as dark as a black cloud, and the Yangtze human pill was as bright as the sun. The two were entangled together, rising and falling in the sea of Qi. Luo Yan's consciousness moved slightly, causing the inhumans and water act in the Yangtze human pill to quietly reveal a crack. The sun behind the layers of dark cloud suddenly shone brightly. Luo Yan hurriedly blocked the gap, but a trace of flowing light still overflowed and mixed into the rapidly swelling sea of Qi. Almost within a few breaths, the entire mountain was dyed a light golden color. Luo Yan. He carefully examined it for a moment and found that this golden color was not pollution, but a sign that the true essence became more refined. The Qi refining technique he practiced was the true words of the Nine Heavens King Wei entering the realm. The Taoist true essence extracted was based on pure and clear Qi, which was already refined and condensed enough, and this dyeing with gold further increased the strength of the true essence. As the golden true essence spread along the meridians to the limbs and bones, Luo Yan could detect that many physical flaws, or hidden injuries left by previous battles, were now nourished and repaired by his spiritual consciousness. As for the most critical Jade Palace, the color of both the inner and outer walls began to change from ivory jade to golden jade. To be precise, the former is milky white, and the latter is a brighter platinum. Luo Yan even had an inexplicable enlightenment, feeling that this Jade Palace is actually divided into low-end, medium-end and high-end. The low-end is white jade, which is equivalent to 200 years of cultivation. The medium-end is golden jade, which is equivalent to 400 years of cultivation. As for the high-end representing the first-grade golden elixir and 800 years of cultivation, I don't know what kind of gorgeous color it is. Luo Yan used the same trick again and opened a small hole in the encirclement of the inhumans and water. Then Yangtze human then once again overflowed with a wisp of extremely pure Yang Qi, which quickly mixed into the sea of Qi. So that's how it is. Luo Yan finally realized, without the help of the inhumans and water, this Yangtze human pill will immediately merge into the Qi sea, and the body of an ordinary cultivator cannot bear it at all. On the other hand, without the suppression of Yangtze human pill, inhumans and water will also poison the body. They are obviously two poisons, but combined they become a unique Xifu secret medicine. Wonderful. Who came up with this method? It's good that it works. Kumlin Jin breathed a sigh of relief. How long will it take to refine this Yangtze human pill? About 1 to 2 years. Luo Yan replied, if there is an adventure, it will only be short, not long. Jin, read the file Wei Dongliu. I want to see what the flying night demon has concealed. Okay. Kumlin Jin said in a deep voice. Point 4. Shipping mounting, Tongshuan Med Station. Character identity. Wei Dongliu. Mirror flower water moon template is overwritten, and is traveling through time and space. When Wei Dongliu walked into the stone house, he saw Witch Jing rewarding her 2 cheap apprentices. This is yours. She smiled and handed Yuo Jin a flying sword. Wei Dongliu could see clearly that it seemed to be a 9th level gold system. This is for you. She also handed Wang Jun a set of flying needle magic weapons. Yuo Jin took the flying sword and was at a loss. Wang Jun was smart, and immediately smiled sweetly and thanked her. Thank you, Master's wife. Good child. Witch Jing was immediately ecstatic, and touched her head with a loving face, but Master's wife is not Master's wife yet, you have to wait until your master, the Demon King, agrees, understand? You can't call her like that outside in the future. Got it, Master's wife. Wang Jun understood it immediately. You can't call her like that outside, you need to call her more inside. Yuo Jin was confused. Senior Jing clearly didn't let you call her master's wife, but you still called her like that. What does it mean? Cough cough cough. Wei Dongliu coughed and stepped in. Wang Jun immediately showed a horrified expression as if he was caught red-handed. Jingling turned around in surprise, and when she saw that it was not the red-haired and double-pupiled Waymojin, she immediately became depressed again. Oh, fellow Taoist Wei is here. She said in a flat voice. What's your reaction? Wei Dongliu asked dissatisfiedly. Jingling laughed bitterly, and then forced a respectful expression, and bowed perfunctorily. Hello, fellow Taoist Wei. No, that's not the reaction I'm talking about. Wei Dongliu had a headache, so he turned his attention to the 2 disciples. How were your lessons going? How long will it take for the PC to be filled? Yuo Jin and Wang Jun looked at each other, the latter's expression collapsed, and the former said honestly, "To answer master, it will take about 70 years. 70 years? Wei Dongliu stared. Why does it take so long? It only took me more than 10 years to go from the 3 levels of fasting to the formation of the Purple Palace." Yuo Jin couldn't respond to this at all, and could only keep a bitter face and remain silent. Wang Jun looked helpless, but she was muttering in her heart. She was no longer a novice in cultivation. She and Jing Xinian had also learned a lot of common sense in the cultivation world. They knew that the key refining stage, that is, the stage of filling the qi, for ordinary cultivators would take about 60 years. She and Yuo Jin were of mediocre aptitude. Judging from the efficiency of breathing and refining qi, it would take about 70 years. This speed was not the worst in the cultivation world, but was of the middle and lower level. If one had excellent aptitude, most of them could achieve success in 30 or 40 years of cultivation. Jing Xinian had this aptitude. If one had an extremely high talent and could breathe like a whale swallowing a dragon every day, it was possible to reach the marrow cleansing stage within 10 or 20 years, but it was unheard of to cross 2 realms in 10 years and reach the palace transformation stage. She cast an inquiring look at Jing Lin, but Jing Xinian had no intention of refutation at all. She just crossed her arms in front of her chest and nodded calmly. Although it sounds incredible, how could my Wei Mo Jun be compared with an ordinary genius? Let alone 10 years of qi refining and marrow cleansing, even if it takes 100 years to cultivate a first-grade golden elixir, that is as it should be, and it is natural. There is no need to be too surprised. Fellow Daoist Jiang. Wei Dongliu stopped bullying the 2 cheap disciples and said lightly, "Go and call fellow Daoist Wen, and follow me to a place." "Where?" Jing Lin blinked. "White Bone Palace," Wei Dongliu said. Jing Lin. She was a little confused for a while, and then suddenly realized that she seemed to have heard of this place name. It seems to be a branch of the ancient Jirizhao, the predecessor of the Ingadeo, but its specific location has long been unknown. Could it be that my demon master has mastered the location of the White Bone Palace? "Do you have to call Wen Yang?" Jing the witch smiled softly. Subtext. If you can go with pairs, why add one more person to share the treasure? Yes. Wei Dongliu showed a cold look of "I have made up my mind. There are 2 reasons why I have to ask Wen Yang to come with me. First, in the history that has already happened, Wen Yang went with me, and it is difficult to change. Second, even if it can be changed, there is no need. I have to ambush the flying night demon in advance and plunder the White Bone Temple. I need Wen Yang's knowledge and understanding of the ancient Yin Ghost Do. Chapter 333. Which one is the real voice? In the eyes of the Orthodox, the location of the Ingido is mysterious and hard to find. However, the demon cult seems to have some secret way of communicating with each other. In short, Jing Lin took Wei Dongliu to a ferry on the Yellow River. This place seems to be just a small fishing village, but when Wei Dongliu landed on the ground, he found that there were too many fishermen who were not right here. To be precise, they were all pretending to be Ingido monks. From the perspective of Wei Dongliu, an experienced and professionally trained senior spy who has been in this business for decades, the acting skills of these Ingido monks are simply embarrassing. If the Orthodox monks can't recognize them face to face, then the Orthodox can organize everyone to practice the sky eye. After all, there is no interstellar space in this world. However, on second thought, if the Orthodox monks fly by here on a sword and see a ferry below, will they deliberately land to check it out? It's impossible. How many ferry crossings are there from the upper reaches to the lower reaches of the Yellow River? At a place selling tofu near the entrance of the village, the 2 saw Wen Yang wearing the clothes of a working woman, with the linen sleeves rolled up high above the elbows, revealing her white and smooth arms. Another male monk dressed as a scholar was standing in front of the tofu stall, waving a fan, and chatted with him attentively. "Junior Sister Wen, you'd better not pretend to be a tofu seller. The rouge and powder stall over there is still 1 person short." "Junior Brother Jiang." Wen Yang said neither servilely nor arrogantly, but the voice that came out was a clear and beautiful female voice. "Don't you have your own things to do? Didn't I just come back from the front line?" The male monk said with a smile, and took out a magic weapon from his arms. "Here are the spoils of war. No merit, no reward." Wen Yang refused coldly. "Take it, it's useless to leave it here." The male monk put the magic weapon next to the tofu, and then left in a chic manner, waving a fan. Wei Dongliu tilted his head slightly, and saw Jing Lin looking at his nose with his eyes, and his heart with his nose, forcing himself to hold back his laughter. "How long are you going to stand there and watch?" Wen Yang turned around and said unhappily. This time the voice switched to a deep and magnetic male voice. Wei Dongliu secretly admired him in his heart. It was a pity that he didn't go to Modern Earth to be a voice actor. How is Brother Wen these days? Jingmo Envy said with a smile. What's good or bad about it? Wen Yang complained and pushed the tofu stall into the house. If there is an order from the sect, I will go to the front line to kill the orthodox monks. If there is nothing to do, I will play immortal here. You all saw it. Brother Wen. Wei Dongliu said, we found a relic and would like to invite you to explore it. Wen Yang was a little surprised, but soon nodded. Okay, I'll go to the house to change clothes. Soon, he changed into the robes of a female cultivator of the Ingido. Wei Dongliu didn't bother to ask him why he wanted to wear women's clothes. After all, there can't be too many problems with the mysterious character setting. If it becomes 100,000 Ys, then there will be no big boss style. The three of them flew in the air with their swords, heading towards Longshan in the west. Wen Yang said, we are close to the front line of the conflict with Kunlin. We have to be careful. Is the ruins of fellow Daoist way near here? Or is it farther away? Under Longshan. Wei Dongliu said concisely. Under Longshan? Wen Yang suddenly remembered an underground ruin that the Ingido had found nearby. When Wei Dongliu led the two to land at a certain foothill of Longshan, Wen Yang was shocked to confirm that it was really that ruin. Fellow Daoist way. He considered the words a little, and then said, the ruins here, in fact, many years ago, we, the Ingido, have explored it clearly, and we have almost plundered it. It was only later that we abandoned this place because of the war with Kunlin, and there is basically not much left in it. Fellow Daoist Wen. Wei Dongliu said calmly, do you know Fish and Yaksha? Fish and Yaksha. Wen Yang's face changed slightly, and he obviously knew what this word meant. Seeing his expression, Wei Dongliu knew that the Ingido monks not only did not find the White Bone Palace inside, but also did not find that Zhuang land where the Flying Night Demon was buried. Let's go, he said lightly. The three of them entered the Longshan crack, passed through the cave, and arrived at the underground palace corridor made of blue bricks and grey powder. Wen Yang looked around silently. He had explored this underground palace more than 10 times. Why didn't he see any Flying Night Demon? According to his memory, Wei Dongliu followed the route of the Flying Night Demon and arrived at a palace. This is a small room with a coffin on each side. The lid was opened and placed beside it, and it was empty. There was originally a golden corpse on each side. Wen Yang explained. Later, the elders of the sect lifted the coffin and took the body away. Yeah. Wei Dongliu nodded and looked at the blue brick wall between the two coffins. If you remembered correctly, there was a hole in the wall when Fish and Yaksha brought Qiu Chang Time and Zhu Yingyan to this place. Go through the hole and continue forward for a distance, and you will reach the deep valley where the White Bone Palace is located. Considering that Jian Qingnan and others may still be exploring the route to Fish and Yaksha, while Qiu Chang Time and Zhu Yingyan are in Jinlan Cave, Wei Dongliu immediately came up with the answer. He waved his right hand, and 3 golden lights flew out from his sleeves and pounced on the blue brick wall opposite. This 100 poison gold and silkworm Qiu is a vicious insect. Its pair of large claws can even gnaw flying swords, let alone blue bricks. In a few seconds, a big hole was gnawed in the wall, revealing the second layer of brick wall inside. Although it is still a brick wall, Wen Yang and Jianglin both feel something is wrong. Because in terms of the area of this room, only 1 layer of brick wall is needed to support the entire space, and there is no need to build a second layer of brick wall. The poisonous golden silkworm continued to attack, and soon drilled through the second layer of brick wall, revealing the third layer of brick wall. Now the two of them immediately determined that there must be a secret room inside. The reason for building several layers of brick walls is, first, to increase concealment under the detection of spiritual consciousness, and second, even if someone knocks here, it will not make a hollow sound behind. The poisonous golden silkworm Qiu was very ferocious and rushed in madly. Soon it penetrated 6 or 7 layers of brick walls and finally revealed the hole inside. In here, Wen Yang probed with his spiritual consciousness, but there was still no end after hundreds of feet. What is it? The White Bone Temple. Before Wei Dongliu could speak, Jiangmo had already imitated his indifferent tone and said pretentiously. The White Bone Temple. Wen Yang was stunned for a moment, and suddenly he shouted out of control like an explosion. His tone was unusually sharp, and even a female voice came out. Be quiet. Wei Dongliu's face immediately sank. Ahem. Wen Yang immediately switched back to the deep male voice and said with a cough, "Fellow Daoist Wei, are you sure that there really is the White Bone Temple down there? We'll know once we go down and take a look." Wei Dongliu said calmly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 334. Arriving early and starting to plan. After walking for an unknown amount of time, the three finally came out of the cave. What came into view was a huge, deep, bottomless rift. Jianglin and Wen Yang were both extremely alert, because in this kind of environment with no light and a huge space, if they encountered an attack from a flying monster with night vision, there would be almost no good way to deal with it. Wei Dongliu was calm and composed, although his spiritual sense was also scanning the surroundings. He had to maintain his mysterious boss persona on the surface. The three of them followed the narrow path and continued to meander downwards. Wen Yang, who was walking in front, suddenly tilted his head slightly and looked at Jianglin. Something was wrong. Wei Dongliu's leisurely style was really wrong. It was just like taking a walk in his own back garden. Unless he was very familiar with this place, but if he had explored this secret place in advance, why would he call you and me to come? Could he really be some ancient monster? Jianglin understood what he meant, then turned his head away silently, pretending not to understand. It feels so good to be a bully, she thought proudly. It seems that this little witch has been completely bewitched by Wei Mojin, and they are in cahoots with each other. Wen Yang thought coldly, secretly lowering his eyelids and eyelashes, and only using his spiritual sense to keep exploring the surroundings. What's that sound? Wen Yang suddenly heard a strange ringing sound, and immediately felt dizzy. He was about to warn, but in his spiritual sense, he saw Wei Dongliu walking in front of him and Jianglin behind him, and there was nothing unusual. Could it be that these two people are plotting against me? Wen Yang subconsciously thought of this and was shocked, and then quickly reacted. No, the sound did not come from these two people, but from the bottom of the valley. He quickly used his mental method to resist the illusion attack in the sound, and then subconsciously probed his spiritual sense to the bottom of the valley. Perhaps everyone had gone down far enough, and this exploration reached the dome of the White Bone Palace. Wen Yang. Just when Wen Yang was overwhelmed with emotions, which Jiang also heard the strange ringing sound. This bell sounds pretty nice, she thought subconsciously, and then suddenly realized, no. There's an illusion. After a moment of daze, Jianglin suddenly passed Wen Yang and ran to Wei Dongliu, pretending to be attacked by an illusion, and said in a delicate voice, "Doorway, this sound seems a little wrong. This is the White Bone empty bell." Wei Dongliu said lightly, "The bell is made of bones and moves without wind. Its sound can shake people's souls and captivate their minds. Those with lower magic power will feel dizzy, weak limbs, and unable to move after only 3 breaths of hearing the bell." Jianglin was slightly startled when she heard it, thinking that Wei Dongliu despised her poor cultivation, and hurriedly said, "Well, it's not that I can't resist this kind of illusion, I'm just reminding you. Doorway is really knowledgeable." Wen Yang behind him suddenly said, "I can recognize that this is a White Bone empty bell just by hearing its sound. I have read about this item in classics. It is said that it is a special magic weapon used by the discipline hall of our sect in ancient times. All new disciples must walk before the White Bone empty bell, only then they will know how strict the rules of the Ingido are. In addition, if an external enemy invades, one only needs to activate the White Bone empty bell with all his strength, and he can directly attack the enemy's soul. Its effect is comparable to the protective formation of the sect." "I see," Jianglin said with a smile. "In other words, this is the White Bone Temple below. If there is any place where the long-lost White Bone empty bell may be located, it can only be the White Bone Temple." Wen Yang sighed softly. "In history, our Yingido has had 4 major disasters that destroyed the sect, and each time it almost cut off the Taoist lineage. Now, even the whereabouts of the White Bone Temple cannot be found, but I didn't expect it to be here. Fellow Taoist Wen, will you report to the sect afterwards?" Jianglin suddenly asked. "Of course not." Wen Yang carefully observed Wei Dongliu's expression, and then said seriously, "If it is the location of an ordinary secret realm, if you offer it to the sect, you may get a big reward. But the White Bone Palace is of great importance, and the sect is likely to block the news and only let a few high-level officials know." At this point, he just kept silent. As for what the subtext is, of course it goes without saying, since only a few high-level officials can know, then people other than the few high-level officials will naturally disappear. Wei Dongliu didn't say anything, but took the two to the bottom of the valley. The majestic White Bone Palace was revealed in the three people's consciousness. It is indeed the White Bone Temple. Wen Yang said with emotion, since the Enkidu lost the whereabouts of this place, the three of us are probably the first group of cultivators to arrive here. Wei Dongliu asked. Fellow Daoist Wen, let me ask you again. Do you know the Flying Night Demon? Yes. Wen Yang pondered for a moment and said, Fellow Daoist Wei should know that my Enkidu used to have two schools. Refining yin corpses and controlling ghosts. In the yin corpse school, yin corpses are divided into 4 levels. Iron, copper, silver, and gold. These yin corpses are often people who died suddenly. They are controlled by cultivators as weapons and have infinite power. Above them are the earth-walking Rakshasa, the Flying Night Demon, and the legendary Drought Demon. Yin corpses that have reached this level will begin to possess intelligence, talent, and magical powers, so they are often difficult for cultivators to control. Therefore, it is necessary to add a magic weapon to the corpse refining stage to refine them together, so that the two lives can be cultivated together and difficult to separate. In this way, this magic weapon can be used to forcibly manipulate the yin corpses. Of course, if the yin corpses with spiritual intelligence can snatch the magic weapon, they can refine it deep into their bodies to eliminate the danger of being clamped by others. In the era of the White Bone Temple, there may still be Enkidu cultivators who can refine yin corpses to the level of Flying Night Demons. But now no one in our sect does this. Everyone does the opposite. Instead of refining others into high-level yin corpses and enslaving them, they practice corpse cultivation themselves. If they can become a drought demon, they can live as long as the heaven and earth, and are not much different from earthly immortals. For example, in our sect, there are now 2 Flying Night Demon seniors, both of whom are elders of the sect. Wen Yang talked about the knowledge of the yin corpse school, and Wei Dongliu and Jianglin were very fascinated. The two of them were not completely unfamiliar with this knowledge. They had read some miscellaneous books in their daily lives, but they certainly did not know as much as Wen Yang. Refining corpses. In the past it was to refine others, now it is to refine oneself. It is true that there are all kinds of wonders in the world. At the end, Wen Yang asked cautiously, Fellow Daoist Wei, is there a flying yaksha in this White Bone Palace? Yes. Wei Dongliu said frankly, and the magic weapon that is linked to its life is also in this White Bone Palace. Do you know how to use this kind of magic weapon? It's very simple. Wen Yang answered without hesitation, just drop blood essence to make it recognize the master. After taming the magic weapon, communicating with it mentally is equivalent to the life of that flying yaksha, which is only in your mind. If you want it to walk, it will walk. If you want it to run and jump, it will run and jump. Even if you ask it to commit suicide, it has to do it. Of course, since it can enslave the flying yaksha, naturally no one will be willing to let it commit suicide. But you still have to beware of its calculations. After all, it has already opened its spiritual intelligence, and is not inferior to human cultivators at all. If we let its flattery make us lose our guard and allow it to snatch away the crucial magic weapon, we will suffer the most brutal and cruel revenge from the flying yaksha. Several extremely terrifying cases are recorded in the ancient books of our sect. The crowd chatted with each other and walked towards the main gate of the White Bone Temple. Chapter 335. Generous sharing of profits and mutual confidence. It's amazing. Wen Yang looked at the surrounding furnishings and said with a smile, under the long mountain, there is a 1,000-foot rift valley and the White Bone Temple, and it is built so large. It shows how prosperous and powerful the Enkidu was in the era of Niangyang Shaiji. 9 demon kings, 72 fire crows, 500 yakshas. Jianglin also sighed. If the Enkidu today can have half of its former glory, why worry about being defeated by Kunlun Tai King sect? Wei Dongliu said slowly. You only know one thing and not the other. Even in ancient Kunlun of that era, there were 3,000 nascent soul cultivators. In the Kunlun Mountains, there are more than 200 sects of all sizes. Among them is such a powerful force as the Divine Fido, but it was still eliminated by the ancient Kunlun cultivators like cutting melons and vegetables. If not for this, how could the huge Kunlun Mountains be completely occupied by the Tai King sect today? The two were speechless at the same time, but their hearts were in turmoil. The term ancient Kunlun rarely appears even in the classics of the Yin Corpse and Heavenly Demon sects, let alone a clear number like 3,000 cultivators. Those who can understand it so clearly are either cultivators from Kunlun. After all, it is the history of their ancestors, old monsters who survived from the ancient times. Wei Dongliu seemed to be unaware of what the two were thinking. He just silently savored the gratifying trend of the mysterious personality synchronization value rising, and then continued to move forward. To the left is the headquarters of the Ghost sect. To the right is the headquarters of the Incorpse sect. Last time, the Flying Night Demon took Qiu Chang's Han and Zhu Yingyan to the left. This time, he will take the two to the right. Wei Dongliu. Just as he was about to step forward, Jianglin suddenly called from behind. What's wrong? Wei Dongliu stopped and looked back. Nothing. Jianglin stopped talking for some reason. She wanted to say something like age can't stop us, but when the words came to her lips, she suddenly couldn't spit them out. Because she suddenly realized that she seemed to have never understood this Dioyo Wei. Even for the red-haired and double-eyed Wei Mojin, it was just a matter of attraction. Seeing that Jiang Monu stopped talking, Wei Dongliu didn't care and continued to move forward. After passing through the main hall and coming to the back hall, he saw a large number of coffins lying like mountains, and gold, mercury and sulfur flowing like a river. It seemed as if a large formation was set up, but in fact there was no formation at all, just a messy pile. Corpse refining room. When Yang said solemnly, touching the protruding coffin next to him, it turned out to be prison phoenix wood. This kind of wood can't be found now. There may be some in that 10,000 mountains in the southern border shrouded by miasma. See if there is anything useful. Wei Dongliu said indifferently, take away all the useful ones. Okay. So Yang jumped onto the coffin and searched around, as agile as a cat. Which Jiang had nothing to do, so she came over and asked, Wei, when are you going to activate that, very handsome demon king's Dharma body? I will only transform into a Dharma body when I'm in trouble. Wei Dongliu looked at her with a smile, are you looking forward to getting into trouble? No. Which Jiang shook her head quickly, she spoke incoherently, and soon lowered her head sadly, unable to continue. Wei Dongliu was not unaware of her thoughts, but the mysterious boss didn't care about love, so he just turned his head away indifferently. When Yang fell from the pile of coffins, placed 3 objects on the ground, and said, only these 3 are worth taking away. He introduced them one by one from left to right. The piece of wood on the left is prison phoenix wood, which is very suitable for making sealing instruments. No matter whether it is the 5 elements or the yin and yang, it is basically difficult to penetrate the prison phoenix wood. Isn't prison phoenix wood of wood attribute? Jianglin asked curiously, if it encounters metal or fire objects, it can also resist erosion. Of course. When Yang said, the Ingido at the time would use a secret method to process the prison phoenix wood, unfortunately, it has been lost now. The emerald green bead in the middle is called the body condensing bead. As long as you hold it in your mouth under your tongue, your body will not rot. This thing is used to seal and warm corpses, but the method of refining it has been lost. Therefore, now our sect can only inject a large amount of mercury into the corpse instead. How disgusting. Thinking of this bead being stuffed into the mouth of a corpse, which Jiang immediately said with disgust. Of course this bead has never been used. When Yang understood her meaning instantly and explained quickly. The one on the far right is a handleless locust wood sword. I don't know what it is used for, so I'll take it out for you to see. Wei Dongliu looked carefully and it was indeed the handleless locust wood sword. But this sword, shouldn't it be hung in the treasure room of the ghost school next door? Then, Wei Dongliu suddenly realized. As a yin corpse, the magic weapon that can control the flying night demon is of course stored in the yin corpse school. As for why this sword was hung in the treasure room over there from Qiu Chang's Han's perspective, it was of course because, Wei Dongliu sighed, then reached out and took the handleless locust wood sword, and said, I want this, you can divide the rest. Jianglin and Wen Yang were stunned at first, and then happy. What surprised them was what kind of object was this handleless locust wood sword that made Wei Dongliu choose it without hesitation. Considering that he had frequently asked about the flying night demon before, could this sword be the key magic weapon to control the flying night demon? What made him happy was that fellow Daoist Wei did not want to take all the spoils for himself, but was willing to share the profits with them. If it were any other fellow Daoist from the demon sect, he would have taken everything for himself by relying on his profound skills. After all, Wen Yang also provided information support, so he was very straightforward and directly chose the prison phoenix wood. Which Jiang did not contribute anything on this trip, and for the first time in history, she was a little embarrassed to take it, but then she thought, my Lord Weimo gave me something, what should I be embarrassed about? Fellow Daoist Wei, she said seriously, I appreciate your kindness, and I will repay you later. The implication was that he could not come up with anything in exchange, so it could only be regarded as a favor owed. Wei Dongliu was a little surprised, because the reason why he was willing to share the profits with his companions was not because he coveted the favor of Witch Jiang, but because he looked down on the other two rubbish at all. After all, his vision was too high. However, Wei Dongliu's character is not to become stronger, but to find out the news of the hell. He has not forgotten this original intention. Befriending Jiang Lin and Wen Yang, or even doing them a favor, is of course a way to develop personal connections. So he waved his hand in boredom and said, "It's just a few small things, not worth mentioning." This unrestrained and uninhibited style, compared with the penny-pinching habits of most demon cultivators nowadays, can be said to be two different people. In the eyes of Jiang Monu and Wen Yang, it immediately added a bit of credibility to the previous guess of the old monster. Wen Yang's expression was dazed. He lowered his head and thought for a moment, and suddenly showed a humble attitude of asking for advice, and said sincerely, "Wei Qian, Wei Doya, I will accept this favor. But I have a question. If Doya doesn't mind, can you help me solve my doubts?" "What's the question?" Wei Dongliu said lazily. That is, Wen Yang hesitated and looked at Jiang Lin next to him. He and Jiang Lin have known each other for a long time, but there are some of his deepest secrets that he has never told the other. It's just that the mirror monster revealed his true colors in the Mirror Lake Temple last time. Wen Yang felt that if Witch Jiang investigated further, she would probably guess most of the secrets. It would be better to show a sincere and open attitude and tell them here to deepen the relationship and bond. Wen Yang made this decision secretly, then he sighed and asked, "My question is, if a man has his soul extracted from his mother's womb by a secret method and stuffed into his sister's body, then is he a man? Or a woman?" Chapter 336 Life and Death Cannot Be Controlled by Others. I have a friend. His father is Minjian Xinren of the Invaluable, and his mother is Yu Xinren from the same sect. When his mother was about to give birth, she was ambushed by hostile monks. In short, his father failed to save his mother, and there were two twins in her belly. The elder brother had half of his body destroyed and was dying, while the younger sister had foul air entering her brain, and her soul was incomplete. So, his father extracted the elder brother's intact soul and transplanted it into the younger sister's intact body, Wen Yang said with a gloomy expression, and his voice gradually became lower. Jiang Lin was also a little depressed after hearing this, thinking that if I were to be treated like this, I would just commit suicide. Wei Dongliu next to him suddenly raised his eyebrows and said, "Everyone here is not an outsider, so let me ask clearly. Is this friend you are talking about yourself?" Wen Yang's face froze for a moment, and he almost vomited blood. Jiang Lin's cheeks twitched as well. Wen Yang waved his hand and said awkwardly, "That's not important, not important. Anyway, my friend, he has been born as a girl, but people around him also see him as a girl. But his father is from the ghost school. He told him about his life story early on and asked him a question he couldn't refute. If you were originally a man, and because your body was destroyed, you took over a woman's body, would you become a woman?" Wei Dongliu. Jiang Lin. His father also said, "What if the body you took over was not a human woman, but a beast? Would you become a beast?" Wen Yang said in a dark tone. Father finally concluded that it is not his body that determines who a person is, but his soul. Jiang Lin had a strange expression, and he obviously disagreed with this statement. However, the previous theory of taking over the body of a beast was too impactful. If it could not be refuted, then no matter how hard he tried in other directions, it would be impossible to convince Wen Yang. "I have heard of a theory about this," Wei Dongliu said expressionlessly. "That theory says that gender is determined by acquired factors, not by nature. Even if you were born male, as long as one day you suddenly realized that you were a female, then you were a female from this moment on." Wen Yang listened in silence, thought for a moment, and then smiled awkwardly. How can there be such a ridiculous statement? If a lecturer lies that he thinks he is a female, he can freely enter and leave the ladies' boudoirs. Indeed, I also think it is nonsense. Wei Dongliu said seriously, but it does reveal one thing, that is, there is indeed acquired gender recognition. The theory your father said is based on a premise, that is, you have formed the corresponding gender recognition. After that, no matter what body you travel to, you will choose to stick to your recognition. But if you exchanged bodies in the womb and your soul does not have gender recognition, then I think even if you think you were a female, it is not a big problem. Wen Yang listened with a stiff smile, and said awkwardly, "It's not me, it's a friend of mine, but thank you." Wei Dongliu nodded and was about to leave when he heard Wen Yang say, "Doi Jiang, my friend's story is over. It's your turn." This time he did not use a deep male voice, but a neutral one that was indifferent and could not tell whether it was a man or a woman. Jiangling. She showed an embarrassed expression as if she had eaten melons and tried to change the subject. What story do I have, Jiang? When Yang said in a gloomy tone, Doorway is so generous to bring us to explore the ruins here. Of course, we should treat Doorway with sincerity. What do you think? Jiangling almost wanted to vomit blood. It seems that it is not enough for you to reveal the secret yourself, but you have to bring me along. But what Wen Yang said also makes some sense. She has told such a private matter. If I still hide it, my Weimojin will compare it in his heart, and won't he have a grudge against me? Ahem. Which Jing coughed and said, in that case, I will share a little secret with you. Actually, I was born in a yin year, yin month, yin day, yin hour and yin moment. She said mysteriously. Then, the other two showed an expression of that's it. Do you know what a person with an innate yin body is? Jiangling said coldly, if you use my body as a sacrifice to summon the demon, the rank of the demon that responds can be raised to a higher level out of thin air. Fellow Daoist Jing turns out to be a top-notch demon sacrifice. Wen Yang immediately covered his mouth and laughed. How dare you tell us such a secret? What we? Which Jing was furious. Are you worthy at being compared with Demon Lord Wei? Wei Dongliu quickly came to his senses and said with a sneer. Your master must have ulterior motives for accepting you as his disciple. Yes. Jiangling said coldly, but this is also my amulet. Such a good sacrifice must naturally be used to summon the best demon. Wen Yang said thoughtfully, in other words, before your master decides to take action, he will protect you from being killed by other disciples. Not really. Jiangling was silent for a moment, and said, my master, in fact, has not made up his mind yet. If you really show excellent talent as a cultivator, then cultivating a nearly perfect and controllable disciple will be more attractive than the value of summoning a high-level demon. Wei Dongliu pointed out the key coldly. That's right. Jiangling said faintly, people with congenital yin bodies also have a certain bonus in the practice of the magic of the heavenly demon Do. So the master must be weighing whether to make me a direct disciple or turn me into a sacrifice for a high-level heavenly demon. I have roughly figured out the critical point in between. She showed an extremely serious expression and said in a cold voice, first, I must be the best among all the disciples. Second, I must form a high-grade golden elixir. In this way, it can basically ensure that I can successfully form a fetus fairy and become a unique cultivator in the future. In this way, the future value of me being left behind for training will be greater than that of a high-level heavenly demon. Although she only said 2 points, Wei Dongliu was keenly aware that there was actually a truly critical third point, to gain the absolute trust of her master. Otherwise, the better the ability and the more powerful the foundation of the Tao, the more her master will be afraid and take action against her in advance. Thinking of this, Wei Dongliu also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The character setting of the demon Do side, choosing to set up a school on its own is indeed correct. If you really want to become some old monster's disciple, you have to tremble with fear and tread on thin ice. You have to take 1 step, calculate 2 steps, and look 3 steps ahead. Your life and death are always in the hands of others. How frustrating and uncomfortable that would be. Chapter 337 Cooperating with the performance. After the exchange, the 3 set off again. Jiangling and Wen Yang were about to move forward when they suddenly heard Wei Dongliu say, you go in and search first. I have something to do outside. The 2 were just slightly startled, and then they quickly reacted and said, okay, let's go in first. Wei Dongliu watched the 2 enter the back hall and confirmed the time with a Jing again. Fish and Yaksha and others will be here soon. He quickly left here and turned to the other side of the back hall, and arrived at the treasure room without any obstacles. In the treasure room, all kinds of magic weapons and instruments are dazzling, making people salivate. Unfortunately, there are insidious formations and restrictions everywhere around. If you touch them rashly, you will be seriously injured. Thinking about it carefully, even if Junior Sister's Yu is here, I'm afraid it is impossible to break these restrictions. Wait, is it me? Wei Dongliu figured it out, sighed, and pulled out the Kingping sword and quickly shot it into the treasure room. I saw a black light in the room, and various restrictions broke out one after another. The sound waves and vibrations knocked down everything on the shelf. After confirming that all the restrictions inside were invalid, Wei Dongliu had to go in again, rearrange the magic weapons, pill bottles and other objects on the shelf, and then hang the handleless locust wood sword on the wall. Then he slowly withdrew from the treasure room, found a hidden corner to hide, and said, a Jin illusion. Kunlun Mirror quickly cast a disguised illusion on him. Not long after, there was a sudden commotion outside. Then, Zhu Yinlian, who was in a hurry, came from outside. Under the effect of the illusion, she did not look into the depths of the corridor, but went straight to the door of the treasure room and cast the Fire Phoenix spell to explore the situation inside. Then she showed a look of surprise. Why is there no restriction here? Wei Dongliu hid at the end of the corridor on the side, looking at the silly expression on Sister Zhu's face, and couldn't help but want to laugh. If it was Witch Jing here, she would never go in so easily. You should know that there are many insidious prohibitions that may not be detected by detection spells. Compared with the experienced demon monks, Sister Zhu is still too young. Wei Dongliu waved his sleeves secretly, and a gold and silkworm gear with hundreds of poisons flew out from his sleeves, crouched in the corner of the ceiling near the treasure room, and quietly peeped at Zhu Yinglian's movements in the room. She came directly to a shelf and stared at the inhumans and water inside. This made Wei Dongliu suddenly remember that Qiu Chang Tian had not given her the Yangtze human pill and the storage bag after returning to Kunlin. Ahem, I will definitely return it next time I read the game. Zhu Yinglian put away the inhumans and water, and patiently took away other magic weapons and objects, and finally took the handleless locust wood sword hanging on the wall. As soon as she stretched out her hand, Wei Dongliu had already opened the chaotic demon body, transformed into the appearance of a demon king with red hair and double pupils, quietly approached her from behind, and moved over her shoulder like lightning, holding the handleless locust wood sword in his hand. Zhu Yinglian. In an instant, the expression on her face became extremely wonderful, but she quickly gathered her mind and put on a posture as if facing a great enemy. Who are you? Zhu Yinglian asked coldly. Wei Dongliu was very disappointed. As my Taoist partner and junior sister, your vigilance is so poor. You didn't doubt that there was no restriction inside, and you didn't notice it when someone approached you. What did I teach you usually? Demon Lord Wei Dongliu. He deliberately showed a vicious and grim smile. Wei Dongliu. Never heard of him, Zhu Yinglian replied coldly, and suddenly made a sword gesture with both hands in her sleeves, and the Yujie sword shot out from behind and stabbed at the opponent's head. As a result, Wei Dongliu grabbed it with his hand. Zhu Yinglian's pupils shrank suddenly, and he hurriedly urged the Taoist magic on the sword, but he only saw the Yujie sword wailing violently. Wei Dongliu was carrying a chaotic demon body and had the eliminating demons and separating the clear and turbid scripture in his body. He had already transformed all his strong Taoist essence into the most evil and filthy chaotic demon energy. At this time, with just a thought, the demon energy rushed into the Yujie sword and fought with the Taoist essence inside it. In Taoist terms, this is called the magic weapon is contaminated, which is an ability that only advanced magic can have. Seeing that the Yujie sword did not obey his command, Zhu Yinglian was going to use the Great Light Fire regardless of the consequences, and both sides would suffer losses in this small space. However, Wei Dongliu knew her very well. The tactical style of this junior sister Zhu was almost the same as her strong character. It was more difficult to get her to bow her head and give in than to kill her. As soon as she made a gesture, Wei Dongliu stretched out his hand like lightning and directly strangled her neck. Zhu Yinglian's throat was restrained, and the bright fire surged up along her throat, but was soon stopped by the demonic energy that invaded her neck. Under the impact of the two, she almost rolled her eyes. Wei Dongliu pinched her fair neck, as if he was grabbing the neck of a goose, and the demonic energy quickly poured into her, causing her meridians to be blocked, her mind to be dull, and her consciousness quickly fell into darkness. Done. Looking at Zhu Yinglian, who collapsed to the ground, with a painful face and unconscious, Wei Dongliu felt a little morally guilty and self-blame, but soon changed his mind. Oh, my apprentice sister Zhu is too weak. She can't beat Qiu Chang Tian, and she can't beat Wei Dongliu either. How can I let her go out to train with confidence? The reason why I acted so roughly this time was to teach her what the law of the jungle in the world of cultivation is, and what the cruelty of the demon sect is. It's better to die in my hands than to die in the hands of other demon sect thieves in the future, right? Those people don't know what it means to be sympathetic and gentle, and what it means to show mercy. Thinking of this, Wei Dongliu quickly convinced himself. I'm doing this for my junior sister, so I have to hit her hard and let her experience the necessary setbacks. This is all for her good. Thinking of this, he felt at ease and no longer had any shame. He picked up the handleless locust wood sword hanging on the wall with his right hand, picked up Zhu Yinglian on the ground with his left hand, and carried him on his shoulder like a sack, and walked out. Leaving the treasure room and turning the corner, Wei Dongliu, with red hair and double pupils, appeared in front of Qiu Chang's Hainan and Fishan Yaksha, and threw Zhu Yingyan on his shoulder. Fishan Yaksha was pinching Qiu Chang's Hainan's neck with his inky black corpse claws. Seeing this, he quickly pulled him aside, causing Zhu Yingyan to hit nothing. Wei Dongliu took the opportunity to spit out a drop of blood from the tip of his tongue, which fell on the handleless locust wood sword, and immediately recognized the master. The flying Yaksha felt something in his heart, and his face suddenly changed. The locust wood sword that I had cultivated with my life was subdued by this guy in front of me. The chief of the Kunlun Foundation establishment realm, oh? There is another flying Yaksha, Wei Dongliu deliberately sneered, and the flying Yaksha could no longer hold back, and immediately threw away the worthless Qiu Chang Tian, and attacked him fiercely. Wei Dongliu held the handleless locust wood sword to block its attack, and his mind turned. Punishment. The thought flashed through his mind, and the handleless locust wood sword trembled slightly. The claws of the flying Yaksha immediately burned and festered, and his expression twisted violently. Oh, that's it? Wei Dongliu sneered, you haven't unlocked the seal, and you only have this level of strength. The flying Yaksha said nothing, but continued to attack him fiercely, but was limited by his own seal, and his strength could not be exerted even 1/10 or 1/12. Seeing Qiu Chang's Hainan running to check on Zhu Yingyan's physical condition, Wei Dongliu no longer held back, and his thoughts turned again. Strengthen the seal. The flying Yaksha was immediately stunned, and was chopped away by Wei Dongliu's sword, falling to the ground unable to move. Wei Dongliu walked forward and talked to Qiu Chang's Hainan according to the lines projected by the Kunlun mirror. This chapter is mainly for closing the loop, mainly about Wei Dongliu's world line that Qiu Chang's Hainan has not observed, that is, what happened in the treasure room. The subsequent performance process of the two people will not be repeated. See chapter 36 of this volume for details. The next chapter starts with everyone fights to escape from the underground palace, and the head of Ziwi's sect comes from the west with a sword. Chapter 338. Fearless in the face of danger, both wise and brave. After that, it was time to memorize the lines. Since Qiu Chang's Hainan in the past had clearly seen the performance of the two, Wei Dongliu now needed to repeat it verbatim. Li, Jianglin, and Wen Yang chased Qiu Chang's Hainan and Zhu Yingyan all the way. If the other party dared to fight back, they would aim their attack at Jianqingnan, who was still unconscious, and the two would immediately speed up and flee in a panic. After rushing out of the Longshan underground palace, Jianglin saw the two men flying up on their swords, and he was still a little unsatisfied. Are those two people Kunlun's chief Qiu and Phoenix Fairy? She asked with a sneer. It seems that they are nothing more than that. Here we go again. When Yang sighed helplessly, fellow Daoist Jiang, the cultivation level of those two is definitely not lower than ours, it's just because they are afraid of the consequences. I know. Jianglin sneered, it's a pity that we didn't cut the grass and wipe it out this time. Otherwise, Kunlun would have suffered a lot. Wei Dongliu didn't say anything, just grabbed the handleless locust wood sword and turned to look at the flying night demon. If you have any skills to escape, just take them out now. As soon as these words came out, Jianglin and the others immediately stopped chatting and looked over. The flying night demon was driven by him all the way down, and it seemed that he had been tortured to the point of losing the will to resist. He just lowered his eyebrows and said pleasingly, Master, how dare I run away? There is a slightly troublesome enemy approaching. Wei Dongliu said coldly, if you would rather die than surrender, then I can only send you on your way first. Flying night demon. As if to verify his words, a bright stream of light shot from the west and instantly flew to the side of Qiu Chang's Hainan and Zhu Yingyan in the distance. The other party was wearing a plain Taoist robe, a white hair and a high crown, a whisk hanging diagonally in his hand, and a fairy sword swinging horizontally under his shoes. Who else could it be if not the Ziwi sect master of Kunlun Taiping sect? In an instant, Jianglin felt the hair on his body stand up, his heart was as fast as a galloping horse, and the premonition of danger was frantically warning him. Wen Yang was not much better than her, but his face twitched and he looked at Wei Dongliu in disbelief. Is this what you call a slightly troublesome enemy? Wei Dongliu's face did not change, but he narrowed his eyes and continued to stare at the flying Yaksha, not hiding the coldness in his eyes. He wanted to save his life, and with K. Jin's transmission, it would be easy. The difficulty lies in taking Jianglin and Wen Yang away, and not exposing the abilities or magic weapons of other characters. After all, Ziwi's sect master is the leader of Kunlun Taiping sect, and it is necessary to have a wide range of social contacts. let alone Qiu Chain Tian, even if he used the abilities of Ling Yunpo Yan. When he was a guest in Shushan or Penglai in the future, he would see Ling Yunpo Yan using the same method, and suddenly say, I have seen a certain evil sect thief use this method before, it is very similar. It is estimated that he would have a heart attack. In this case, there is only one possibility left. Wei Dongliu's expression became more and more gloomy, and Fission Yaksha stared at Ziwi's sect master, looked at him in horror for a moment, and suddenly said quickly, I have the heavenly demon disintegration method, why don't you use it? Wei Dongliu shouted, and the Fission Yaksha rose up a black cloud, wrapped the three people in it, and then fled quickly to the east. Fission Yaksha, of course, can fly. Now he used the heavenly demon disintegration method again, and his life essence burned up, and the speed was almost unbelievable. Even though Wei Dongliu had 5 personalities and was knowledgeable, he had never seen such a fast flying speed. He just looked at the continuous mountains in front, and was left behind in an instant. Wei Mojin! Jianglin suddenly shouted. Wei Dongliu turned his head and saw a bright stream of light rushing from behind, and the speed was even faster than the flying night demon who used the heavenly demon disintegration technique. It can be seen that the head of Ziwi's sect was extremely angry because his disciple was almost killed. Even though Wei Dongliu was 90% sure that he could escape, he was almost scared to death at this time, and immediately urged the flying night demon. Faster. The flying night demon did not answer, but conveyed his emotions to Wei Dongliu without reservation through the steel seal of the handleless locust wood sword. It really tried its best. Wei Dongliu turned his head again and looked behind him, and countless thoughts turned rapidly in his mind. The 100 poisonous golden silkworm Gu, at the current flying speed, can stop the enemy even if it is thrown out, but it cannot be successfully retrieved. The 10,000 ghosts evil sword, Wen Yang is by his side at this time, and he cannot use it easily, otherwise he will have to consider whether to kill him to silence him. Qiuling Luo and the other two are all useless, only Long Long's method seemed to be irrelevant, but Long Long had nothing to show for the time being except the dragon bloodline of talent, which could try to stop the Ziwi sect master's things. What to do? He was thinking hard, while Jianglin and Wen Yang were unwilling to sit back and wait for death. They desperately cast magic spells at the back, throwing magic weapons and flying swords like they were free. Of course, there was no impact on the pursuit of Ziwi's sect master. Here we have to repeat the old tune again. In the world of cultivation, the two things that really play a decisive role in fighting are restraint and rank. Restraint, of course, does not need to be elaborated too much, such as the restraint of the 5 elements, the destruction of evil spirits by thunder magic, the filthy effect of demonic energy, etc. If there is no restraint, then the rank generally determines the outcome. For example, when building the foundation and fighting the golden elixir, the other person's true essence is far more powerful than yours, and the power of driving flying swords, magic weapons, and Taoist methods is more than 10 times yours. Then unless your flying sword, magic weapon, and Taoist method are of a very high rank, and driven by the same amount of true essence, the power is also 10 times that of the Jindan cultivator, there is room for you to compete with the Jindan cultivator. If you want to fight against the Ening with the foundation building, you have to take the 11th rank Immortal Sword, or the Fanchen Seal, the 8 treasures Ling Long Tower and other spiritual treasures, and you have to be able to drive them. As for fighting immortals with the foundation building, unless you have the Qin and Tian twin swords in your hand, if you can make the Qin and Tian twin swords recognize you as your master, what immortals are you fighting for? The immortals will all rush to accept you as their apprentice. Because of this, even if Jianglin and Wen Yang looted more treasures in the White Bone Palace, unless there is a magic weapon equivalent to the 11th rank Immortal Sword, they basically can't stop the Ziwi sect master. My Arjing, isn't it an innate spiritual treasure? Arjing. Wei Dongliu called out hurriedly, help me. We have to wait a little longer. Kumlinjing said with difficulty. Why are you so useless? After all, you're an innate spiritual treasure. No way. My body is incomplete now. Kumlinjing shouted loudly, mirror flowers and water moons, illusory alarm dreams, beware. As soon as the voice fell, the sword light of the Ziwi sect master stopped abruptly, and was thrown away in an instant. As expected of my Arjing. Wei Dongliu was overjoyed, and then said arrogantly, it's okay, he won't chase me again. Fission Yaksha hurriedly stopped the heavenly demon disintegration technique and looked back exhausted. After a moment, the green-faced and fan face showed an unbelievable expression. Jianglin and Wen Yang were also numb. I had long guessed that you were an old monster, but I didn't expect that you were really an old monster, and even the Ziwi sect master of Kunlun Tai King sect had a way to deal with it. In normal times, the two might have started shouting Sinuhe is invincible in the world, but now that Fish and Yaksha is here, it's not good to appear to be surprised. Otherwise, it would be a small matter to be looked down upon by Fish and Yaksha, but it would be a big matter to lose the favor of Waymozun. Therefore, when Yang cleared his throat and said, "You are just a Kumlan sept leader, nothing special." Jiangling also sneered and said, "Fish and Yaksha, did you see that? You have been reincarnated for 9 lifetimes to be able to work like a cow and a horse for fellow Daoist way. This is the blessing you have earned by doing good deeds in 9 reincarnations. I'm just a zombie, how can I have reincarnated for 9 lifetimes?" Fish and Yaksha subconsciously wanted to refute, but he dared not say it when the words came to his lips. The Kumlan sept leader just now had obviously reached the peak of the nascent soul realm. If the two sides really fought, the other party would be able to destroy it in a few breaths. It was precisely because of this that it did not hesitate to use the heavenly demon disintegration method to escape. It would still have a chance of survival if it fell into this person's hands, but it would have no chance of survival if it fell into the hands of the Kumlan sept leader. But why? Why this person? What method did he use to stop the Kumlan sept leader who was chasing him? Thinking of this, Fish and Yaksha was shocked and frightened, so he had to suppress all his malice and said in a muffled voice, "That's right. I'm the Master's ox and horse in this life, and I wish to be the Master's hawk and dog in the next life." "You're a zombie, how can you have a next life?" Wei Dongliu said coldly. "Fish and Yaksha, I wish you all a happy New Year's Eve. There may be updates in the afternoon, or there may be no updates. It is currently in a state of uncertainty, which I would like to call the New Year's Eve dinner state." Chapter 339 The world is bustling, all for profit, back to the hinterland of shipping mounting. This time, Wen Yang also obtained the qualification to enter the Tongshuan men resident, which made Jiangling jealous. Although this guy considers himself a man, but now he considers himself a man, it doesn't mean it will always be like this. His body is still the body of a beautiful girl. Although in terms of appearance, he can't compare with the Jiangwich who is proficient in charm, but what if? Love is something that never makes any sense. The three of them passed through the cave tunnel and came to the belly of the mountain. Wen Yang was amazed at this paradise, and even said, "I didn't expect there would be such a wonderful place in the world." Jiangling quickly put on the posture of a master's wife and went to test Yuojin and Banjin's homework. Wei Dongliu exchanged a few words with Wen Yang, and let him walk around at will, and then came to check the condition of his disciples. How are they practicing? Yuojin is practicing more steadily, but he is limited by his aptitude, so his speed has not been fast. Which Jiang replied, "Banjin's talent is slightly better, but due to his personality, he can never calm down." 2 wastes. Wei Dongliu did not hide his disappointment. "Didn't you know that their aptitude was not good when you recruited them?" Jiangling secretly complained, but said, "If fellow Daoist Wei wants them to speed up their practice, he can probably only use spiritual medicine." "Yeah." Wei Dongliu sighed. "By the way," Jiangling smiled sweetly, "I haven't shared the things I got from the depths of the White Bone Palace with fellow Daoist Wei yet." She took out a storage bag from her bosom and said, "Fellow Daoist Win and I have discussed that we will put all the loot from this trip here first, and fellow Daoist Wei will choose first. After choosing, I will share it with him equally." It sounds respectful, but Wei Dongliu knows that this is mainly because he really doesn't like ordinary treasures. If it was another thrifty monk, Grandier, Jiangling would definitely not be so generous. As for Wen Yang's willingness to give the things to Jiangling for safekeeping, it seemed that there was another round of negotiation and calculation between the two of them, so he was too lazy to care. Wei Dongliu looked carefully at the pills. The most of them were suitable for the Foundation Establishment realm, the fewer for the Golden Core realm, and there were none for the Nascent Soul realm. The reason was simple. The latter two are relatively rare, so there were often not many stocks in the sect. The monks had to find materials to refine them and bring them with them. After picking up some pill bottles at random, Wei Dongliu waved his hand, indicating that he didn't want the rest. Jiangling was not surprised. She had already keenly noticed that the reason why this Wei Demon Lord had an outstanding vision was because he had seen too many good things. So she followed him everywhere. Although she didn't regard ordinary treasures as worn-out shoes, but those that were not at the 10th level, she was numb after taking too many, and she didn't feel any pleasure or emotion at all. Wei Dongliu went to scold his apprentice. Jiangling looked at the dazzling array of treasures on the ground and looked down on them for a moment. They were all ordinary stuff. She went outside and threw the storage back to Wen Yang. Wen Yang was sitting by the pond in the valley in a daze. He caught the storage bag thrown by Jiangling, scanned it with his spiritual sense, and said in surprise, "So many. I thought you would secretly occupy some of the things in his name. Is it that serious?" Which Jing rolled her eyes, sat down by the pond, rolled up her trouser legs, and put her white and smooth feet in the water. Wen Yang's face twitched when he saw this. He had just scooped some water from the pond to drink, and now it was used to wash feet. "Don't you care about those things now?" He sighed and said, "I remember that you would care about a piece of spiritual stone debris in the past." "Really?" Jiangling tilted his head and thought for a moment, "Really?" Especially after knowing that she was an excellent sacrifice for the devil, everyone looked like a dangerous person to her, and she wanted to seize every minute and every second to become stronger. What made her change slowly? Seeing her turn back to look in the direction of the stone house, Wen Yang smiled slightly and asked in a low voice, "Do you like it?" "None of your business." Which Jing rolled her eyes. "Tell me about it." Wen Yang pretended to be resentful. "We have known each other for so long, and we are considered best friends, right? You can't even tell me. Where did the male best friend come from? Please don't reincarnate as a woman in the next life." Which Jing's poisonous tongue was merciless. "I'm a woman now," Wen Yang said with his chest puffed out. "If you don't believe me, come and touch it." "That's it?" Jiangling looked at his flat chest and said disdainfully, "Do you want me to touch your ribs?" Wen Yang. He looked at Jiangling's full chest, then looked at himself, and suddenly felt like he was sunk. After a moment of frustration, Wen Yang stood up without saying a word. "Where are you going?" Jiangling asked casually. "During the escape, I used up too many vengeful spirits." Wen Yang replied, "I need to replenish some." "Oh." Jiangling wiped his feet clean, put on his shoes and socks, and stood up. "I need to replenish some demon heads too. Should we call on fellow Daoist Wei?" Wen Yang said in a somewhat strange tone. "It's strange, this guy's attack style always makes me feel like he's from the Three Pure Ones." "Which aspect are you talking about?" Jiangling asked curiously. "Is it the red hair and double pupils? Or the 100 poisonous golden silkworm Gu?" "Okay." Wen Yang could only say frankly, he is quite different from any demon sect cultivator I've ever seen. "Indeed." Jiangling recalled carefully. The cultivators on the demon sect side can be roughly divided into two types. 1. Those who act in a sinister and unscrupulous way. 2. Those who seem to be upright and generous, but in fact act in a sinister and unscrupulous way. Even if Jiangling thinks for himself, it's hard to be an exception. This style of behavior is not innate, but is forced out by the demon sect's own environment of the law of the jungle. In the past, although the Jiao emphasized forcible interception, it also emphasized the main idea of man conquers nature to resist the fatalism of the Chanjiao of following the will of heaven. Nowadays, people don't even resist the name of demon sect. Everyone is only for their own interests. As for the overall reputation being smeared by the other side, who cares? On the other hand, Wei Dongliu, although he has the evil and crazy Demon King's Dharma body, his style of doing things is particularly upright and generous, without the sinister style of the demon sect monks. For example, when everyone first met in southern Xinjiang, Gilai, the bull donkey, tried to provoke him, but was hugged in the face by the 100 poisonous golden silkworm Gu. If it were another demon sect monk, he would definitely see blood to establish his prestige, but Wei Dongliu pretended to not take him seriously at all and let him go lightly. Gilai fell for his tricks and obeyed him all the way, with such a straightforward and generous style. Could it be that he is really an old monster who has survived from Jiao to this day? Jiangling couldn't help but say. "Do you think so too?" Wen Yang thought for a moment and said, "I personally think that his body should not have formed a pill, but the soul and spirit inside." "Okay, stop guessing," Jiangling said firmly. "In any case, with the degree of our current bond with him, our interests are actually the same, right? Even if you and I have given cultivation resources for so many years, it is not as much as the benefits he has given us since we met fellow Daoist Wei." "Of course," Wen Yang said without hesitation. "I wish you all a happy New Year's Eve." Chapter 340. New Year Competition, Teaching the Senior Sister. It's the new year again. For the Shushan Sword Immortals, there is no custom of celebrating New Year's Eve. They have retained another more exciting custom. The first month competition. This competition, there is no seat challenge link, nor is there a ranking of the Immortal Sword ranking. It's just a random draw, one-on-one challenge, so it's much more harmonious than the Shushan official competition. There are even many familiar sword immortals from the same sect who were drawn to compete together. Everyone played the round-based system politely, with back and forth, and stopped when they were done. In the end, the winner was decided in a friendly manner, and neither side lost face. Of course, there are examples of harmony, and there are naturally relatively disharmonious examples. For example, the mowing sword immortals in previous years, no matter whether your opponent is strong or weak, always go all out, which makes everyone dislike it. But this time, Zisu was listening to the advice of his junior brother Lin Yunpo. During this competition, you should make as many friends as possible and make fewer enemies, and it is strictly forbidden to make unnecessary hatred. Sister, don't always think about cutting off other people's natal swords. Ling Yunpo said earnestly, if you establish your power too much, it will make them isolate our King Luopete even more. Even if they're really weak, you should be polite and give them a way out. It's New Year's Day, don't make it so bloody and violent. Zisu kept nodding and said, okay, junior brother, I'll listen to you. After drawing the lot, Zisu stepped onto the stage. The sword immortal disciple opposite him looked pale, and his legs seemed to be trembling. He cursed in his heart, it's so bitter, how did I draw this killing god? Looking at the disciples off the field, they were also quite indignant. The battle hasn't even started yet, and you seem to be about to admit defeat. What's going on? Someone shouted junior brothers will win, and then the cheers of encouragement rang out one after another. Perhaps the cheers really worked, or perhaps he was forced to go on stage and couldn't get off. Although junior brothers was still panicking, he was much better than when he was shaking and trembling at the beginning. The swordsman on the stage didn't attack immediately, but asked the other party kindly, do you want to admit defeat? When the people below the stage heard this, they were immediately furious. We have all united as one and cheered for the other side, and you actually said such arrogant words? Now there were not only cheers, but also curses. Junior brothers listened in a daze, and suddenly his face didn't seem to be afraid anymore. Although I'm not good at swordsmanship. He smiled shyly, but now there are so many fellow disciples watching, if I admit defeat directly, it will be a disgrace to my sect. Please teach me, senior sister Anne. He drew out his natal sword and said seriously. Zisu sighed and drew out the Feian sword. After a few breaths, junior brothers was beaten out of the competition venue. It can be said that he was defeated miserably. The gap in swordsmanship attainments is naturally not something that can be made up by mustering a little courage. Looking at the boiling noises around her, Zisu frowned slightly. In normal times, she would not understand and leave indifferently after being scolded by everyone like this. After all, Su Jian taught her since she was a child that the sword fairy can only speak with the sword in his hand. However, this time she listened to junior brother Ling and did not directly cut off the opponent's natal sword as usual, and seriously injured the opponent. Why did the attitude of these spectators not change much? After leaving the venue, Zisu came to Ling Yunpo and asked in confusion, junior brother, what did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong, Ling Yunpo smiled bigly. In the situation just now, since everyone is cheering for the courage of junior brothers, you should say a few nice words to praise the opponent, and then defeat him with a strength slightly higher than that of the opponent, so that the opponent can maintain at least face and leave the stage intact. In this way, ordinary disciples think that junior brothers lost the battle but not the person, and their sharp eyes can see that you are letting him win, and everyone can save face. Instead of using all your strength to beat the opponent out of the venue like just now. Having said that, someone like Zisu who has almost no social experience is probably completely unable to do such a complicated operation. After thinking about it, Ling Yunpo had to reorganize the language in the simplest way and said, in the next game, after you go on stage, don't defeat the opponent directly, but use a strength slightly higher than that of the opponent to fight a few rounds and let the opponent admit defeat. Zisu nodded and said yes, indicating that there was no problem. Ling Yunpo also took the time to go out and defeated his opponent who drew lots neatly. As the leader of the 4 strongest men in the foundation building realm of Shushan, it was natural for him to win. The opponent did not perform any drama of being afraid first and then determined, and the audience around him did not take sides to stop the fight. I just don't know why when it was the turn of the senior sister, there were countless strange dramas for no reason. Returning to the sidelines, Ling Yunpo saw that the one who drew Zisu this time was actually the rookie Baishan who was ranked behind their 4 strongest men. Ling Yunpo had never dealt with this female sword fairy, but Qiu Changtai knew her. When he participated in the trial in the Shushan Locking Demon Tower, the head of Yuzhi arranged this sword fairy to receive him. Seeing Baishan heroically walk onto the stage, Zisu asked with a smile on her face, do you want to admit defeat? No. Bisheng immediately flew into a rage, as if she had suffered a great humiliation, and drew her sword and said, "Why did senior sister humiliate me like this? Even if I am not strong enough, I will not easily admit defeat." After that, she flew directly with her sword. The crowd immediately burst into cheers. Compared to the previous junior brothers who spoke well but was knocked off the stage after a few moves, everyone obviously supported the stronger senior sister Bisheng. Zisu held on silently, and after a few rounds, she successfully regained the rhythm and suppressed Bisheng in turn. However, she remembered junior brother Ling's instructions and suppressed her own strength a little, and just fought back and forth with Bisheng. The audience was nervous, and Bisheng saw the clues and was immediately trembling with anger. How can this be Zisu's strength? Even when facing junior brothers and just now, you also gave your all. Why are you so humiliating to me? She gritted her teeth in anger and simply used the secret method of burning blood to directly raise her cultivation level, and her swordsmanship suddenly became several points sharper. Seeing Bisheng suddenly become stronger, most of the onlookers were excited. Could it be that this Bisheng's sister had been playing dumb in the past, but this time she was going to show her trump card and severely shave the face of the sword fairy who cut grass? Only a few disciples saw that something was wrong. Bisheng was not playing dumb at all. It was obvious that she was provoked by the opponent and was going to fight desperately. "How is it?" Lin Julanzhen suddenly asked on a stand in the distance. "Can't win," Julanfenhai said concisely. As Bisheng's cultivation suddenly improved, Zisu also frowned slightly. "With this level, you can't beat me. Is it necessary to use that secret method?" However, she still remembered the advice of junior brother Lin, and once again raised her swordsmanship attainments that she had kept back, still maintaining a level that was just slightly better than Bisheng's after the explosion. Bisheng was just showing off his power for a few breaths, but he saw the other side's sword light suddenly become stronger, suppressing him again. He was shocked and angry, his eyes widened, his teeth clenched, his expression was tense, and he suddenly spit out a large mouthful of blood mist. He was not careful, and the side effects of the secret method took effect. On the first day of the new year, there may be some in the afternoon, or there may not be, just like a wild Siberian tiger. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 341 Ling's 3 moves backfire. Ling Yunpo had a headache. Senior sister was not low in emotional intelligence, because many times she could not only read people's expressions, but also keenly perceive the kindness or malice hidden in other people's words. To be precise, she should be called simple and straightforward now. Even if she noticed the hostility of others, she didn't know how to remedy or respond. The reason was that Su Jian had never taught her these social skills. Ling Yunpo highly suspected that Su Jian was probably an old straight man, and the way he taught his daughter was probably something like when in doubt, cut first. No matter how smart the children are, what can they do when they meet parents who don't know how to educate them? Zisu came down from the stage with a cold face and walked to Ling Yunpo's side. Then he showed a little panic, as if he had done something wrong. "Junior brother, Senior sister, it's not your fault." Ling Yunpo had to pretend to be resolute, interrupted her apology, and then clenched his fist and said, "I was thinking about it wrongly. It seems that we need to continue to work hard to resolve the prejudices of the peeps against King Luo Peak." Zisu was infected by his passionate spirit, so he said excitedly, "Okay, what should we do next?" "Simple." Ling Yunpo thought for a moment and said, "Don't worry about others. Anyway, every time you play against someone, you should ask the other party whether he wants to admit defeat. If the other party surrenders directly, it will naturally save us a lot of trouble. If the other party refuses to surrender, you can use a strength level slightly better than the other party to fight him a few times, and then ask him if he wants to continue. If the other party realizes the gap in strength between each other and admits defeat decently, it will be over. If the other party still refuses to admit defeat, then senior sister, you can just use your big move and knock him out of the field directly. Such people are often arrogant. Senior sister, you should go down and ask him if he wants to exchange his experience in the battle just now. If the opponent is smart, he will follow your ladder and ask you for some sword theory, so that the atmosphere will be harmonious. Understood?" Zisu nodded seriously, and then began to repeat, "Should I admit defeat? Should I continue? Should I communicate?" Trying to remember it in her heart. Ling Yunpo drew a lot, and the result turned out to be Juanfanhai. Juanfanhai went on stage and said coldly, "Junior brother Lin, come and fight. How dare you disobey me?" Ling Yunpo also responded resolutely and went on stage. Zisu saw that his junior brother was going to fight Juanfanhai, and immediately wanted to go over to watch the fight, but was stopped by Basheng halfway. Senior sister Anne. Basheng had completely suppressed her defeated dejection, and said seriously and firmly, "I know that I am too weak now, and I will not make trouble or blame you. This time I will practice hard, and I hope I can be worthy of your full effort next time." "Oh, okay. Zisu said casually, intending to continue to go to the junior brother. "I'm serious," Basheng said angrily. "I didn't say it perfunctory." Zisu frowned. Basheng hesitated for a moment, and had to turn around unwillingly. Zisu was about to take another step, but heard the Jindan Zenrun who presided over the venue called, "Zisu, rest well, then come and draw lots." She stomped her feet when she heard it, and her expression was a little helpless, so she turned back to draw lots first. Coincidentally, this time the one drawn was Ling Yuanzhen. But in a sense, it was not a coincidence. After all, if an ordinary Shushan disciple drew her, it would be like delivering food directly. The top leaders would definitely not let her kill randomly on the spot and mow down the grass all the way. There must be a beautiful ending. Lin Yuanzhen is the eldest brother of Jin Gangshan. He is also the one who performed most stably among the three of Lin, Juan, and Yuan in the past. He has occupied the second place on the Immortal Sword ranking the most. Therefore, he has a high prestige among the disciples of Shushan Foundation establishment. In addition, his private relationship with Zisu was also quite good. Let him deal with the grass-cutting sword fairy. Even if he loses, he will not lose too badly, which will deepen the psychological shadow of the audience. This is also a fixed step in previous years. Lin Yuanzhen came on stage and bowed, making a friendly gesture to the audience below. The originally boiling venue immediately quieted down. Zisu also walked up to the stage from the other side, recited the three formulas of the junior brother again, and said with a smile, "Junior brother Lin, do you want to admit defeat?" Lin Yuanzhen was slightly stunned. You want me to admit defeat before the fight? Wait, I'm not those weak chickens and dogs before, I'm Lin Yuanzhen. He was also a little angry in his heart, but now in the public eye, he naturally couldn't vent, so he smiled and said, "Although I know I can't win, I have to at least try." "Okay." Someone outside the venue shouted immediately. To be fair, no one thought that the Broken Mountain Sword Immortal could defeat the Grass-Cutting Sword Immortal. After all, there were so many achievements in the past years. However, Lin Yuanzhen's neither humble nor arrogant attitude still made everyone feel good, and they couldn't help but start to expect a shocking reversal and a comeback in the near future, so as to kill the person's fierceness and prestige. Zisu was not surprised, just nodded, and then drew out the Feian sword and stabbed Lin Yuanzhen quickly. Lin Yuanzhen blocked the attack, feeling the speed and strength of the opponent's sword, thinking that Sister Anne's swordsmanship seemed to have improved a lot compared to the last trip to the 10,000 mountains in southern Xinjiang. The two of them combined their moves, and Lin Yuanzhen showed signs of weakness. But he had long been accustomed to it, so while controlling the flying sword to entangle with the opponent, he quickly analyzed the battlefield situation and deduced the sword path, but only heard Zisu ask again, "Junior brother Lin, do you want to continue?" Lin Yuanzhen. It took him a long time to react. This was because they were sure that I had no chance to turn the tables, and they wanted to give me a way out in advance, so that I wouldn't lose too badly. But my rhythm hasn't been messed up yet, so why are you so sure that I will lose? He became more and more upset, and cursed inwardly a few times, but said, "Why don't you continue? Could it be that senior sister can't keep up with the strength after fighting in turns?" When Zisu heard him say this, he knew that the previous question had the opposite effect. Lin Yuanzhen was already a little annoyed, so he quickly raised his swordsmanship level. Lin Yuanzhen's defense line was originally shaky, but the opponent suddenly strengthened the offensive, so how could he hold on? He was immediately broken. The Kaiyuan champing swords were shaken away by the Hanli sword, and the Feian sword took the opportunity to shoot in front of Lin Yuanzhen, and turned around and slapped him out with the sword spine. Lin Yuanzhen didn't expect that the opponent still had some strength left, and was caught off guard. He rolled on the ground like a god for several rounds before he got up in disgrace. "Senior sister Anne, you." His eyes widened, as if he was about to explode, but when he thought of the opponent's increasingly terrifying swordsmanship, his anger suddenly extinguished. He just couldn't help but feel discouraged and murmured in despair, "Why has the gap widened again? Junior brother Lin, do you want to communicate?" Zisu jumped down from the stage and asked with a smile. "Communicate?" Lin Yulanzhen laughed miserably. "In the past, we could still see where the gap was, but now we can't even judge the actual level of senior sister. What's the point of communicating again?" He bowed awkwardly, then recalled the Kayu and Champing swords, raised his arms, covered his face with his sleeves and left. The audience around him didn't expect this result. In previous years, although senior brother Lin was defeated, he was defeated by fighting hard. This time, he was suppressed throughout the whole process and then directly beaten out of the field, without any room to display his swordsmanship. Although this was because the gap between the two sides was too large, seeing Lin Yulanzhen's miserable appearance, everyone felt sympathetic. Everyone was quiet for a moment, and then turned around and dispersed. Zisu stood there, and the smile slowly froze on his face. After a while, he turned around somewhat dejectedly and walked towards the arena where Lin Yunpa was standing. Chapter 342. Changing Senior Sister, starting from teaching by words and deeds. King Luo Peak Taoist Temple, in a secret room. In front of the stone wall where Su Jian was in seclusion, Zisu knelt on the futon, closed her eyes and prayed, her lips moving slightly. After a long time, she stood up and began to clean the secret room. After cleaning, Zisu left the secret room and returned to the Taoist temple. Only Lin Yulanzhen's laughter was heard from the center of the main hall. "Junior brother Lin, it turns out that you are the one who did this. I was wondering why senior sister and suddenly became so talkative that day, and I thought she was being sarcastic. Don't say any more." Ling Yunpa was somewhat helpless. "I don't understand why everyone is assuming that she has bad intentions. My senior sister hasn't done anything to harm the world, so why has she become a heinous person? Is it not okay to be too good at swordsmanship in the Shanqing sect of Shushan? That's not the reason." Lin Yulanzhen sighed. "Junior brother Lin, the monthly salary of your King Luo Peak has recently dropped to the original level, right?" Ling Yunpa was slightly startled and asked, "How did you know?" Lin Yulanzhen explained briefly, and Lin Yunpa immediately understood. After he ranked second on the Immortal Sword ranking and became the Pun Sword Immortal, the situation of King Luo Peak in Shushan improved. In fact, this improvement was not due to his strength. No matter how strong his strength was, could he be stronger than high-level cultivators such as the Golden Core and Junying? King Luo Peak doesn't even have a high-level cultivator. The real decisive factor was that the guests of Shushan, Yuan family patriarch, noticed the existence of Ling Yunpa because of the sword hunting operation. In short, King Luo Peak was protected by a noble person. As the last Sun Sword Master Yang Zhao offered impossible conditions, Yuan family patriarch was disheartened and announced that the sword hunting operation was temporarily over, which meant that Ling Yunpa had lost its value. So after the trip to southern Xinjiang, the other peaks began to move and wanted to re-encroach on the interests that originally belonged to King Luo Peak. Deducting monthly money is the most direct test. After the monthly money was reduced, Yuan family patriarch did not respond, which showed that he really had no time to pay attention to Ling Yunpa recently. So the peaks finally confirmed that King Luo Peak had returned to its original state of no master. After such news spread, those who did not dare to show hostility to Zisu because of the existence of Yuan family patriarch naturally returned to their original attitude. Ling Yunpa understood, sighed, and thanked Lin Yulanzhen seriously. Lin Yulanzhen said no, hesitated for a moment, and then said, "In addition, I heard that some people in the Shushan high level have always had opinions about King Luo Peak." "Opinions?" Ling Yunpa asked in surprise. He knew Lin Yulanzhen's speaking style. No matter the reason for the hostility of the peaks, whether it was hatred for Su Jian or coveting the resources of King Luo Peak, Lin Yulanzhen would definitely point it out directly, instead of using a very ambiguous adjective like opinions. Unless this person who has opinions is so high in Shushan that even if Lin Yulanzhen leaks a little bit of the news and spreads it, it will have a great negative impact on Jinggan Peak. Ling Yunpa was secretly shocked, so he quickly changed the subject and chatted with Lin Yulanzhen for a few words. Seeing that he stopped asking questions, Lin Yulanzhen also secretly knew what was going on. After chatting for a few words, Lin Yulanzhen said goodbye and left. "Senior sister, come out." Ling Yunpa sighed and said. Zisu came out of the inner room, frowning and worriedly said, "Junior brother, is the situation of King Luo Peak very bad now?" "Not really." Ling Yunpa comforted her. "It can only be said that it has regressed a bit, but it is still much better than when I first joined King Luo Peak. I have already thought about it. Those who are hostile to us will still be hostile to us. But we must win over those who are friendly to us, mainly the Foundation establishment disciples who are familiar with us. What do you mean by familiar? Zisu asked seriously. We have dealt with each other before, and the relationship is quite harmonious. Ling Yunpo said casually. If you say we have dealt with each other, in fact, I have beaten them all. Zisu answered seriously, but the relationship may not be very harmonious. Ling Yunpo fell silent. No, when I say dealing with each other, I don't mean sword fighting. How can the relationship be harmonious after being beaten up by you? Of course, Ling Yunpo, who is an unyielding character, could not blame Zisu for this, so he smiled lightly. Birds of a feather flock together. Some people hate the strong because of their defeat, but some people choose to make friends with the strong in order to better improve their strength. Senior sister, have you ever seen Lin Yuanzhen, Julanfen Hegai, Yuanjinu and others feel resentful towards you because they lost to you in a sword fight or were even injured by you? They have never been injured by me. Zisu recalled. Basically, after a few moves, they turned to a disadvantage, found that there was no hope of winning, and simply admitted defeat. Those who were injured by me were the ones who still held on at the last moment. Master said that when facing such an enemy, you must decisively strike hard. Ling Yunpo was silent again. Wait, if they are still holding on at the last moment, it means they have a grudge against you. You acted ruthlessly and cut off someone's natal sword, so the person's master, Taoist partner, relatives and friends all became enemies with you. Isn't this just a case of revenge? Well, senior sister. Ling Yunpo sighed and said, in the future, try not to be so ruthless when dealing with fellow disciples. Okay. Zisu nodded in response. Also. Ling Yunpo continued, since senior sister is the number one on the immortal sword ranking, why haven't fellow disciples invited you to go out for training? Think about Kung Ling Qiu Chain's Iron. Back then, he led his fellow disciples to great prestige and was known as Chief Qiu, who was eager to help others and is righteous. Later, he was admired by almost everyone and had relatives and friends all over the Kunlun Mountains. Why is senior sister, the chief of Shushan, so frustrated? Ahem. Zisu coughed and said uncomfortably, I don't know why, but no one invited me. Before he finished speaking, Julanfen Hegai pressed down the sword light outside the Taoist temple and called out, is junior brother Ling here? Please come in. Ling Yunpo hurriedly called out when he heard that the united object outside was coming. Julanfen Hegai came in exhausted and said, Junior brother Lin, are you free recently? Come with me to explore a secret place, okay? Of course I'm free. Ling Yunpo thought to himself that what he said was true, and hurriedly gave Julanfen Hegai a look, and my senior sister is also free, why don't we go together? Senior sister and is actually willing to go? Julanfen Hegai asked in shock. In the past, we have invited her privately many times, either to practice sword or to drink, and we couldn't invite this great god at all. Oh, with junior brother Ling here, it's really different. Even on the last trip to southern Xinjiang, it seemed that she was worried about junior brother Ling going alone, so she accompanied him. Ling Yunpo heard something wrong and looked at senior sister unsuspiciously. Are you willing? What does this mean? Hey. Zisu quickly smiled and said kindly, why wouldn't I want to go out and gain experience with my fellow disciples? Julanfen Hegai looked at her smile and couldn't help but feel a little scared. He quickly said, that's great, then I'll bring people to King Luo Peak to find you tomorrow at noon. PYA book by an operations officer. Let's have a relationship that will end with a successful confession. What will happen if a young man who has lost his emotions gets a love system? Are you willing to be my girlfriend? I'm willing. Ding, 30 points are obtained. Okay, let's break up. Chapter 343 Down. Senior sister takes over the host. So, senior sister, whenever you're invited to go out for training, you always refused? Ling Yunpo asked seriously. That, Zisu sat on the chair, her legs pressed together under her light green long skirt, her shoes constantly fiddling with each other, lowered her head, and said embarrassedly, Master once said that a sword immortal cannot be hindered by trivial matters. Did Master tell you to cut yourself off from your fellow disciples in Shushan? Ling Yunpo interrupted her. Zisu hesitated, feeling ashamed. Ling Yunpo showed a disappointed expression, and reprimanded her with a look of regret. Senior sister is the chief of the Foundation establishment realm in Shushan, and the number one person below the Golden Core realm. She should have raised her arms and called for the followers to gather. Look at our King Luo Peak, how far has it fallen now? Zisu lowered her head again, her eyes red, as if she was about to cry. Sister, you can't avoid daily social interactions. Ling Yunpo advised earnestly. How many disciples from other peaks do you recognize nowadays? Even among those at the top of the immortal sword ranking, only Lin Julanzan is more familiar with you. Juan Fan Hai is someone I've dealt with more in recent years, and we've become familiar with each other. Although Juan has some bad tastes, it's not that we can't make friends with him. Why, sister, are you okay? Zisu finally couldn't bear it anymore, and got angry out of shame, so she grabbed Ling Yunpo and hugged him, stretched out her hands to knead his cheeks, and said seriously, I know everything, don't say anything more. Junior brother likes to preach so much, but he will become like a nanny butty trapped in the warmth and softness. Ling Yunpo still wanted to struggle. Senior sister is like this, I can't eat junior brother, and Zisu tried to act majestically, I'm the senior sister. Ling Yunpo. No, it's too big. His mind began to deteriorate, and he had to use up his last bit of willpower to insist. Senior sister, you will regret it. Ling Yunpo really didn't know whether Zisu regretted it at this time, but he himself soon regretted it. Because Juan Fan Hai's voice suddenly rang out from outside. Junior brother Lin, I brought people here, why is your door open? He walked in carelessly, and saw the two people hugging each other hurriedly separated, then turned around silently and stepped out of the door. What's wrong, senior brother Juan? Sima Changyan was waiting outside and hurriedly came up to ask. Nothing. Juan Fan Hai was silent for a moment, and said, they are practicing. Practice? Sima Changyan asked in surprise. Don't ask too much about the practice of the King Liu. Juan Fan Hai waved his hand. Sima Changyan was also tactful and immediately stopped talking. After a while, Ling Yunpo and Zisu came out of the temple. Their clothes were not messy, and their hair was very neat, obviously they had been taken care of. Brother Juan, Ling Yunpo urged, fearing that he would ask too many questions, can you tell me about the secret realm? This secret realm is in Xiangxi, Juan Fan Hai replied, let's talk about it on the way. The four of them flew up on their swords, left the Shushan territory, and flew eastward along the river. On the way, Ling Yunpo learned that the secret realm was discovered by Sima Changyan, in the deep mountains of a Mao village in Xiangxi. After entering, there were huge trees everywhere, as well as many snakes, insects, rats and ants, which were much more than the normal primitive jungle. Sima Changyan killed a few of them and found that they were all poisonous. He felt that it was extremely dangerous inside, so he did not dare to explore alone, but went back to the mountain to ask for help, and finally found Juan Fan Hai. Poison? Ling Yunpo asked in surprise, you and I have both undergone marrow washing, so ordinary poison should not be able to harm us, right? Even if it is arsenic or red-crowned crane, if we accidentally take it, we can just use our true essence to force it out. Junior brother Lin, you don't know, these poisons seem to be able to infect the true essence. Sima Changyan said with a smile, similar to the magic weapons of the demon sect, they have extremely strong filthy and polluting abilities. Everyone's expressions were stern. If it is not a toxin targeting the flesh, but a toxin targeting the true essence, then it would be a bit troublesome. As we all know, the Taoist true essence flows in the meridians, and it is about like a big river, flowing endlessly. For this kind of toxin, it is equivalent to pouring red dye into a river, which will soon pollute the entire river surface. For ordinary toxins, people who cultivate immortality can use their true essence to force them out, but this kind of toxin can infect the true essence. If it is forced out with the true essence, if the speed of forcing it out is not as fast as the speed of spreading, it will force more and more. In my opinion, there are only a few ways. Sima Changyan concluded, first, don't get bitten by snakes, insects, rats and ants. Second, bring more pills that can promote the recovery of true essence. Because once you were poisoned, you need to give up the contaminated true essence, which is too much consumption. Third, at this point, he glanced at Juan Fan Hai. Juan Fan Hai immediately understood and asked Ling Yunpo. Junior brother Lin, last time in Langan Cave, I saw that you seem to have a certain resistance to toxins. Ling Yunpo was slightly startled, and then reacted, not bad. His physique is born with sword bones, and the meridians in his body are naturally unobstructed, without any dead corners, so the flow rate of true essence is faster than that of ordinary people. Although he is not immune to toxins, he can expel them faster after being poisoned, without worrying that toxins will remain in some dead corners in the body. I saw a large area of green miasma and a faint spiritual light deep in the giant tree forest. Sima Changyan replied, if there are people who are resistant to toxins, they should be able to explore it. Of course, we'll have to wait until we get there to find out the details. That's right. Juan Fan Hai also helped to speak, of course there is no need to touch ordinary miasma. But what if there are treasures in the miasma? If there are treasures, I can take a risk and give it a try. Ling Yunpo was also somewhat tempted, but just as he said half a sentence, he heard senior sister next to him say firmly, "No. The toxicity of the miasma is unknown. How can you easily agree to take risks, junior brother? The toxicity can be checked when we get there," Ling Yunpo just said half a sentence when he heard Nzisu say again, "Besides, the miasma can block vision and consciousness. If there is any monster in there and it captures you, what should we do outside?" Everyone was speechless, and they knew that after coming out of the misty forest last time, Ling Yunpo disappeared quietly, leaving a certain psychological shadow on Nzisu. I tried to smooth things over. Senior sister is right, but if junior brother Ling explores the periphery and stays in our sight at all times, that will be okay, right? Nzisu pondered for a moment and said, "Why don't I go in with junior brother? Even if there are monsters hiding in the miasma, I can help deal with them." "Senior sister, you have no resistance to toxins, how can you last in the miasma for a long time?" Ling Yunpo said with a smile, "It's better to let me, listen to me." Nzisu glared and said majestically, "I'm the senior sister." Sime Changyan, the sixth on the fairy sword list, was mistakenly written as Xiao Changyan in a few chapters before, which has just been revised. Chapter 344 to Jia Village, familiar. As for the secret realm here, I have checked the classics in the temple, and it seems to be the location of ancient Xiangtan. Sime Changyan said with a smile, "Legend has it that King Zhao of Shu once patrolled Jiaosan. In the river below the mountain, he encountered a strange object that hit his boat. It was called Ping Ship. King Zhao of Shu ate it and found it delicious. Later, when he sent troops to rescue the state of Chen, he ascended to heaven and brought daylight in the army. Tens of thousands of troops only saw red clouds in the sky like birds, flying between the sun. Although legends are just legends, Ping Shi is indeed a favorite food of phoenixes. It contains abundant wood spiritual energy, which means that wood produces fire. Eating it can improve the attributes of the true essence, which is conducive to driving fire-based Taoism and magic tools, and can increase the cultivation of the Wafu by 30 years. Senior sister Ram's natal sword is of the fire type. I said with a smile, "If we can find Ping Ship, it will be of great help to senior sister's swordsmanship." Nzisu nodded reservedly, and Ling Yunpo was speechless watching from the side. They said this on purpose because they wanted to show their affection to you, but you, senior sister, actually acted so cold. It's really more difficult to deal with than having social phobia, at least with the latter. Everyone can see that there is a problem with one's ability. But with you like this, who knows whether you really don't care or are just pretending? Sure enough, seeing Nzisu's cold reaction, Sime Changyan laughed dryly and changed the topic. "Brother Juan, with your purple mansion cultivation, I think you have secured the top-grade golden elixir, right?" I laughed and said, "That's not the case. I entered the Do at the age of 40, completed the marrow cleansing at the age of 90, and entered the transformation mansion at the age of 100. I only have 100 years left to live. Even if you add 60 years of gold and mercury down and 40 years of 10,000-year stone milk, you can barely reach the threshold of the top-grade golden elixir, but you have to go to the southern border to fight every year to drink a sip of the 10,000-year stone milk, a total of 40 years. If anything goes wrong along the way, you will miss the top-grade golden elixir. Brother Juan, don't worry so much." Sime Changyan shook his head and laughed, "There are still 100 years left. As long as I can drink the 10,000-year stone milk in 40 years, I can get the top-grade golden elixir. How can there be such a saying?" I sighed helplessly. "Even if you live 100 years, you may not be able to truly cultivate 100 years of transformation mansion cultivation. Encountering a bottleneck in cultivation, being seriously injured and in seclusion, being entangled by worldly affairs, who can guarantee that the next 100 years will be smooth and unobstructed? Unless you were in the cloud sea and cocoon." "How is junior brother Ling's cultivation of the Watfu?" Sime Changyan asked curiously. "I heard that you entered the tower at the age of 20. Average. Ling Yun said modestly, "About the same as senior sister and senior brother Juan. I am satisfied if I can form a top-grade golden elixir." "Hypocritical." Kunlun Mirror suddenly said, "How many years have you accumulated your Watfu cultivation?" "Just counting the bonus of secret medicines and secret realms, it's almost 510 years. King Ping Sword answered for him, "I've calculated it carefully. 60 years for the golden mercury elixir, 30 years for the cloud sea cocoon, 70 years for the enlightenment in Kunlun Tianmen Hall, 50 years for the K1 spiritual energy, 70 years for the golden juice and jade liquid, 30 years for the red marrow elixir, 40 years for the 10,000-year stone milk, 30 years for the sea body, 100 years for the Yangtze huming elixir, and 30 years for the Ochai golden lotus. A total of 510 years and 290 years are left before I can form the elixir on the spot, and then I will be directly killed by the supreme heavenly tribulation of the first grade golden elixir Lin Yunpo. Well, is the heavenly tribulation of the first grade golden elixir very powerful? He asked cautiously. Who knows? King Ping Sword said boredly. No one has ever formed a first grade golden elixir before. Oh, the great men who founded Thin Sect and Jiri Sect should have formed a first grade golden elixir. Don't scare him. Kunlun Mirror complained. The first grade golden elixir tribulation is nothing great. He has practiced so many immortal arts. If it doesn't work, we still have you and me to help, right? Ah, Mirror, King Ping. Ling Yunpo was deeply moved. You are really my close friends and relatives, my good wives. Puff her. A Mirror and a sword tempered him at the same time. Don't think we don't know what a good wife is. Ling Yunpo smiled and said nothing, laughing secretly in his heart. 510 years of purple mansion cultivation seems simple and easy, but it is actually very difficult. The golden mercury elixir is probably the easiest to get. As long as you are from the three major orthodox sects of Kunlun, Shushan and Penglai, and are outstanding among the disciples in the foundation building stage, you can basically get it. To obtain the Cloud Seeker Kun, one must be in the top 100 of the Shushan Immortal Sword ranking to enter the Demon Locking Tower. The 10,000 years of stone milk and sea body, both require Shushan disciples to go to the southern border to fight, and the former process is too long, and the latter is not stable enough, and they are basically unreliable. Enlightenment in the Tianmen Hall is a benefit for the chief of the Kunlun Foundation establishment realm, and only one person can get it every 200 years. K1 spiritual key is a confidential location of the Penglayu King Temple, and only the elite disciples in the temple can know it. The above not only requires coming from a famous and upright family, but also requires hard work in the faction, full internal role, and fighting to the top of all the disciples in the foundation establishment realm to seize that precious opportunity. As for the rare items such as Yangtze Huming Pill and Yochai Golden Lotus, he has experienced 9 deaths and explored various dangerous secrets, relying on great wisdom, great perseverance, and great fortune to obtain them. How much sweat, how much blood and tears are contained in it? If someone else were here, even if he got the help of Kunlun Mirror and King Ping Sword, could he achieve these great achievements that I have achieved? Hey, it seems we have arrived at Zhao-san. Kunlun Jin couldn't bear to hear his inner monologue anymore, so he quickly reminded him. Ling Yunpo took a closer look and saw that Sima Changyan had taken the lead in suppressing the sword light, so he quickly flew down on his sword. The 4 of them settled outside the village on the edge of Zhao-san, and then walked into the village. The village was a mixture of natives and Hakers, and the clothing customs were very different from those in the north and central plains. Sima Changyan found the village elders and said in the local dialect, Jil-Agula Hil-Agula. Ling Yunpo and others were confused, and then they only heard the village elders nod and ask someone to call a 2-Jia girl. So you were going to take people into the mountain this time? The 2-Jia girl had a lively look in her eyes, and spoke in a very standard Central Plains elegant accent. She chatted and laughed with Sima Changyan. I remind you again, if you follow my route inside, you will never encounter danger. But if you don't follow my route, I can't guarantee anything that happens. We are not here for sightseeing, little girl. Sima Changyan said with a smile. The implication is that you will definitely not follow her all the time. Maybe he will see some spiritual medicine on the way and leave directly. The 2-Jia girl snorted and began to talk to the elder in dialect. She spoke quickly and urgently, and no one knew what she was talking about. Ling Yunpo took the opportunity to come to Sima Changyan and asked in a low voice. We want her to take us there. She is not a cultivator. It is said that this girl has been to the secret realm several times and is very familiar with the environment, roots, monsters and insect swarms inside. Sima Changyan also answered in a low voice. I see. Ling Yunpo understood. If it is really as Sima Changyan said, then we really have to rely on this 2-Jia girl as a guide, her. He suddenly felt that this 2-Jia girl had a sense of familiarity, but after a closer look, he could not find a similar face or temperament in his memory. A Jing. Ling Yunpo asked in a low voice, have I seen this girl before? No. Kunlun Jin didn't see the problem, she doesn't have any illusions, she looks real. That's strange. Ling Yunpo narrowed his eyes and stared at the pretty face of the 2-Jia girl. Zisu pulled his arm. What's wrong, senior sister? Don't keep staring at the girl. Zisu reminded, it's impolite. Chapter 345 Giant Tree Secret Realm, Green Mist. The 2-year girl walked on the mountain road ahead, followed closely by the 4 swordsmen. What's your name? Ling Yunpo asked. My name is A. Ling, said the 2-year girl. Are you familiar with this place? Ling Yunpo asked suspiciously. If not, why are you looking for me? A Ling asked back with a smile. Ling Yunpo was speechless and turned to look at Sima Changyan. It is said that Miss A. Ling was walking in the mountains when she was a child and accidentally entered the secret realm. Sima Changyan explained. Later, she repeatedly entered the secret realm to explore, and explored most of the less dangerous areas completely. Oh? Ling Yunpo asked suspiciously. There are many snakes, insects, rats and ants in this secret realm, and most of them are highly poisonous. How did Miss A. Ling protect herself in it? We 2G people know more about various poisonous insects than you had people. A Ling snorted and said, if you don't believe me and have to ask me questions, then I won't lead the way. You can go by yourselves. She turned around and was about to leave. Sima Changyan and Juan Fanhai hurriedly tried to smooth things over, and then turned around and winked at Ling Yunpo. Ling Yunpo had to smile bitterly and retreated to Zisu's side, indicating that he did not mean to disbelieve the other party. This person, Zisu frowned. Ling Yunpo was overjoyed. What did you see, senior sister? I always feel that he is not a good person. Zisu replied. Ling Yunpo. So those who treat me badly are not good people, right? Although I am very touched, this opinion is useless. We're here. A Ling led everyone to a kernel and suddenly said, through this cave, we can reach the secret realm you mentioned. But if we don't go through the cave, but go over the mountain, we will find that there is an ordinary forest behind the mountain. That's natural. Sima Changyan said, in the process of passing through the cave, there is actually a spatial transfer, which allows us to step into a cave. You cultivators, what you say is really hard to understand. A Ling covered her mouth and laughed. One moment you call it a secret realm, and the next moment you call it a cave. We all call it Dalinsi. Ling Yunpo was silent behind them, just listening to their conversation. The cave is not big, and there is a sound of stagnant water inside. It seems to be moss underfoot, and it is easy to slip when you step on it. However, the Shushan Sword Immortals are all extremely strong, and their balance is also amazing, so they don't fall. Ling was wearing a pair of shoes, but he was able to walk briskly on the wet ground, and soon led everyone through the cave. After walking a few steps forward, the view suddenly became clear, and everyone was in a huge forest. The reason why it is called giant forest is that the trees here are extremely huge, often 30 or 40 feet high, and 3 people hugging thick. In addition, the dense canopy of trees obscured the sky, and the light around was also much dim. Ling Yunpo couldn't help but think of the 10,000 mountains and primitive jungles in southern Xinjiang. However, although the trees there were dense, they were still within the normal range, while the trees here were obviously different species. He looked down at his feet and found that there were thick piles of fallen leaves everywhere, and the soil underneath could not be seen at all. There were constantly some small black insects drilling in and out of the fallen leaves under his feet. Ling Yunpo looked carefully and it seemed that they were not ants, but a kind of beetle he had never seen before. Be careful. A Ling said casually, although the rock beetles will not attack people actively, there are toxins in their body fluids. If you're unlucky enough to step on one and the toxins penetrate the soles of your boots and touch your feet, you must amputate your limbs in time to save your life. Thank you for telling me. Ling Yunpo said sincerely. For mortals, encountering such a difficult toxin, they can only cut off their arms. But cultivators can mobilize their true essence to expel the toxins, so there is no need to say more to her. However, according to what Miss A. Ling said, if you accidentally step on these beetles, it will be troublesome. Can I fly a sword here? Zisu asked. Yes, but it's not suitable. Sima Changyan replied, there are many snakes above the tree canopy, and flying a sword in the forest is easy to be attacked. If you go through the tree canopy and come to the air, it's also okay. But the view is blocked by the forest, and you can't see anything on the ground, so it's meaningless. Indeed. Juan Fanhai echoed. Everyone continued to move forward. Miss A. Ling deliberately chose a small path. The soil here is higher, so there are fewer beetles crawling around, which is relatively safer. But safety is not what the Shushan Sword Immortals have to consider, so everyone released their spiritual senses and kept scanning the surroundings. A link suddenly shouted, ran to a tree on the side of the road, pushed aside the vines wrapped around the roots, took out the polygonal rum inside, wiped off the dust on it, turned around and smiled. Do you want it? If you want it, I'll sell it to you. It's meaningless to us if it's not polygonal rum that is more than 1,000 years old. Sumit Chanyan declined. Okay then. A link put it away and was about to get up when she saw a yellow and black spider suddenly crawling out from behind that tree and pounced directly on her face. Before she could scream, she heard a sword chant, and the spider had been nailed to the tree trunk. When everyone just reacted, Zisu had already shot out the sword and stabbed the poisonous spider. Thank you. A link ran back with lingering fear and thanked Zisu. Be careful. Zisu said indifferently, and took back the Feon sword. The sword shook, emitting high heat and green smoke, and the venom on it was shaken off. The venom fell on the pile of fallen leaves and burned away instantly. Are these spiders common in the secret realm? Julanfan I asked seriously. There are quite a lot. A Ling replied, but most of them live on the treetops at the lower level. As long as you don't get close to the trees, you won't be attacked by them. Everyone looked forward again, and sure enough, except for the path, there were trees everywhere. If you want to avoid getting close to the trees, it is impossible unless you keep walking along the road. After walking along the path for about half an hour, Sumit Chanyan suddenly said, That's it. Everyone looked in the direction he indicated, and saw a large area of green mist in the depths of the jungle ahead. That miasma. Arling showed a surprised expression. You want to go deeper into the miasma? Yes. Julanfan I asked, do you have any way to get in? I think that's suicide. Arling said bluntly, however, torches can disperse miasma, although they can only disperse a small part of the surrounding. And if there is wind blowing the miasma towards you, even if you light a torch, there is no guarantee that you will not inhale the miasma, so it's still suicide after all. Everyone looked at each other for a moment, and they had a general idea in their minds. According to the classics, this light green miasma is actually the turbid air of wood of the five elements. Although inhaling miasma is harmful to cultivators, this environment is often easy to breathe various spiritual objects, and because wild beasts dare not enter, the possibility of being plundered in advance is also lower. Not to mention that this is a secret realm. If the previous owner of the secret realm wants to plant some wood-type spiritual herbs, it is normal to plant them in the miasma. In that case, let's light the torches and go in to explore. Julanfan I thought carefully. Since the torches can dispel the miasma, everyone might as well go in together. If they're really poisoned by accident, junior brother Lin, who has a higher resistance, will be here and can take out the antidote to treat everyone in time. Sumit Chanyan had no objection, and Zisu had no objection as long as he could go in with junior brother. So everyone asked Miss A. Ling to wait outside, and each took out a fire magic weapon and activated it, stepping into the green mist. A Ling watched them being swallowed by the mist. After about a quarter of an hour, she took out a chubby ball from her sleeve, bit her fingertips, and wiped the blood on it. The ball immediately stretched out its limbs and turned into the shape of a wild rabbit, moving its legs and running into the mist, with a speed almost the same as that of a real rabbit. Chapter 346. Deep Pool Water Viper, 100 Section Calamus. In the green miasma mist, there are 4 bright flames. The flames continue to burn the miasma, making crackling sounds like burning firewood. The 4 Shushan sword immortals carefully looked around within the range of the fire. Got it. Sumit Chanyan found another spiritual light in the distance. Everyone followed the guidance of the spiritual light and rushed over, and saw 100 Section Calamus with spiritual light overflowing, growing in the mud beside the pool. This plant is called Calamus, and the stems usually grow up to 9 sections, so it is also called 9 Section Calamus. But if it grows in an environment with abundant Yaniki, it can continue to grow, with a new section a year. After 100 years, it is called 100 Section Calamus, which can be refined into Bako Ganwei-dan, which can be taken to be equivalent to 5 years of Wafu cultivation. Although it is only 5 years of cultivation, it is relatively difficult to obtain 100 Section Calamus, which is relatively low among all the secret medicines of the Purple Mansion after all. As long as you can find a place with abundant yumi of spiritual energy, you'll have a chance to find it. Therefore, everyone was delighted. Since there is 100 Section Calamus here, wouldn't there be other spiritual herbs? I will take this grass first, and then give it to Brother Juan for safekeeping. Sumit Chanyan said hurriedly, afterwards, we will divide it equally according to the value of the spiritual medicine. The so-called equal division method is a method of distributing spoils of war popular among casual cultivators. Its principle is also very simple. For example, if A, B, and C get a lot of treasures together, I will divide it into 3 parts according to its value, and then let B and C each choose one, and the remaining one will go to A. If A's distribution is unreasonable, resulting in one of the shares being too valuable, then B and C will choose this share at the same time. Then A will allocate a little of this treasure to other shares, or mark the price, that is, the person who finally gets this treasure will pay the corresponding price of spiritual stones to the rest of the people, so as to make the value of each piece of spoils as equal as possible. Sima Qianyan proposed the equal division method, and Juan Fanhai readily expressed no objection, but Ling Yunpo and Zisu are confused. Ling Yunpo had never shared the spoils with others. After all, whether it was Qiu Changtai or Yi Dongliu, they took the lead in the team at the beginning, and then took the most valuable ones, and the rest you can divide it up as you like, never considering how much it is worth. Zisu had almost no experience of going out with his companions to train, so naturally he had never thought about how to distribute the spoils. So Sima Qianyan explained the rules in detail, and after the two discussed it, they felt that there was no problem, so they agreed. Everyone reached an agreement, and Sima Qianyan was going to get the grass. As a result, just as he approached, he saw that the surface of the pool of water suddenly rippled, and then a huge head suddenly popped out. As the snake's tongue was swallowing, the golden vertical pupil stared at everyone indifferently. This is a white python. No, the experienced Ling Yunpo quickly recognized that it was a white water snake. The water snake is the predecessor of the dragon. In Linglong of the Eastern Empire realm, the current true body is a water viper. After all, he was once a water viper, so Ling Yunpo knows best what this thing is. The animal instincts brought by its bloodline are generally arrogant, cruel, cold-blooded and impulsive, and it is very aggressive. Since the opponent was ambushing in the pool, he chose to show up suddenly instead of waiting for people to get close and then attack. I think he didn't have the confidence to fight 4 people alone. Well, your guess is very accurate. Sima Qianyan was obviously startled. When he came to his senses, he saw Juan Fanhai's Kantai sword and Zisu's Feian sword flying out almost at the same time. The water viper widened his eyes, and saw a residual image flash by, and the 2 flying swords were shaken out at the same time. It's its tail. Juan Fanhai warned loudly. The tail can also be used to whip the flying sword. Ling Yunpo seemed to have suddenly realized something, and decided to practice with Dragon Fox when he returned. Oh no, to practice with Dragon Fox, so as to avoid being slapped in the face by her big tail all day long. You have a tail, but I don't. Sima Qianyan quickly retreated, while Zisu stepped forward, and the Feian sword flew back and stabbed the eyes of the water viper again. The water viper pulled out its tail again and hit the Feian sword with lightning speed, obviously preparing for someone to attack its eyes. The moment the Feian sword was hit, it quickly turned into a ball of green smoke, and then suddenly exploded into a raging flame, enveloping the water viper. The next second, the water viper turned its head and plunged directly into the deep pool. The huge figure, along with the burning flames, was completely submerged by the water. Ling Yunpo immediately shot out the Kingping sword, and the sword light rolled towards the calamus at the edge of the pond. As a result, a tail stretched out from the pond water and whipped it straight towards the Kingping sword. Obviously, even if the water of the pond was used to put out the flames, the water viper still did not flee, but lingered not far from the water surface, refusing to give up the calamus. Ling Yunpo was too tired to complain. It's just a spiritual medicine that takes 5 years to cultivate the palace. Do you think you have to face off against 4 Shushan sword immortals of the same level? People die for money, and birds die for food. There is indeed some truth in what he said. He manipulated the Kingping sword to turn rapidly, and at the same time shot out the Lizi sword again, continuing to roll towards the calamus. Seeing that he was unwilling to give up, the water viper was immediately anxious and hurriedly used the same trick again, trying to use its tail to whip the Lizi sword. As a result, the sword magic of the Thunder Sword was activated, and a thunderbolt came down, shaking the water viper's whole body and paralyzing it. Ling Yunpo took the opportunity to merge with Kingping sword and turned into a dazzling sword light, directly cutting the water viper in 2. Good. Juan Fanhai cheered loudly. This move of making a feint to the east and attacking the west is the essence of the sword immortals fighting method. Zisu also showed pride, because this move of making a feint to the east and attacking the west of the two-handed sword technique was also taught to Ling Yunpo by her. Now that the junior brother can actually think of using the water viper's greed and obsession with the 100-section calamus to complete a beautiful tactical attack, it can be seen that he has almost absorbed his knowledge of fighting methods. Sima Qianyan also applauded, but he was secretly confused in his heart. The water viper is a species of dragon, and its dragon scales are invulnerable to swords and guns. This white water viper should be of the water element of the 5 elements, using water pressure to temper the strength of the body, so the hardness of the body surface is even more amazing. Just now, whether it was Anzisu's Feon sword or Juan van Hegai's Kantai sword, they were whipped back by the opponent's tail, and there was no mark on the scales. This is a glimpse. This Poon Sword Immortal, although he is usually the junior brother of the Mowing Sword Immortal, he has always been hiding under the light of his senior sister. When people usually mention him, they usually refer to him as the junior brother, and occasionally say Poon Sword Immortal or Ling Poon, even calling his name wrong. It can be seen that although he is ranked second on the Immortal Sword list, public opinion has indeed discounted his strength. I didn't expect that this man's sword combination could actually cut the water snake that the Feon sword and Kantai sword could not do anything to, and cut it into 2 pieces directly and neatly. If Ling Yunpo faced Juan van Hegai or Anzisu in the big competition, and went all out to use the man's sword combination, what could the opponent do? If he resisted with his natal sword, he would definitely end up with his sword broken and vomiting blood. Thinking of this, Sima Qianyan immediately came to the conclusion. No wonder in the last Shushang competition, this Poon Sword Immortal only fought Juan van Hegai with pure swordsmanship on the stage, without using the sword method or the unity of man and sword. I didn't expect that he was hiding his strength. I'm in the countryside, there will probably be only one update today and tomorrow. Chapter 347. High-end circle, gradually taking shape. After the water viper was killed, Sima Qianyan came to the pond and successfully picked the calamus. What should be done next? According to the rules of the casual cultivators, this water viper was mainly killed by Ling Yunpo, so there is no need to distribute anything, and Ling Yunpo can take it directly. But, he cast a signaling look at Juan van Hegai, and Juan van Hegai said, "Junior brother Lin, you killed this water viper, so the calamus belongs to you." "No need." Ling Yunpo said with a smile, "If it weren't for my senior brothers and sisters to help me contain it, I wouldn't have been able to kill the water viper so smoothly. Let senior brother Juan keep this thing first, and distribute it after this trip is over." He said this so beautifully that Juan van Hegai and Sima Qianyan both looked at Ling Yunpo with new eyes. "Good guy, the secret medicine of the Purple Mansion, you just give it up." And the words were flawless, with full emotional intelligence. Compared with a certain senior sister, it's simply a matter of judgment. Anzisu nodded, and had no objection to the junior brother's statement. After all, the beast was killed by the junior brother himself, and the junior brother always mentioned to her that King Luo Peak should now try to unite all the peaks and change the situation of being isolated in the past. Therefore, she just secretly sighed in her heart that the junior brother had really paid too much for King Luo Peak, and she would have to compensate him well in the future. Everyone praised Ling Yunpo's noble character, and the Kingping sword in the Sea of Consciousness was also sighing. Only Kumlan Mira was a little curious and asked, "Guanzu, this is the secret medicine of Zaifu, and you gave it up so generously?" "First of all, I didn't give it up." Ling Yunpo corrected it, "I just said that it will be added to the subsequent distribution. The only thing I gave up is its exclusive right to preemptively use it, but this thing only has 5 years of cultivation, it's really not worth my fussing about it." Wow. Kumlan Mira didn't know what to say, and could only use wow to express his feelings. It suddenly realized that if Chen Yonzhu was greedy for the secret medicine, it would not surprise it. But if he gave it up readily, for it, as long as it was understood as buying people's hearts, it would not be surprising. Anyway, it was normal for Chen Yonzhu. As soon as Ling Yunpo gave up, the atmosphere immediately became much more harmonious. Juan van Hegai put away the calamus, although he did not give a clear verbal guarantee, but he secretly knew in his heart that the subsequent distribution would not let Ling Yunpo suffer. Otherwise, let alone what Ling Yunpo would do, no one could predict what Anzisu would think and what actions he would take when he saw that his junior brother had suffered such a great injustice. Juan van Hegai asked himself, he would rather deal with 100 Ling Yunpo who knew how to deal with people than offend a sword fairy who was difficult to communicate with. Probably only Yuan Jinu could do this, referring to effectively anger her. Sima Qianyan also saw Juan van Hegai's thoughts, and knew that although this senior brother Juan was cold and arrogant, he was actually very upright. Because he was a man of the Jingu before practicing Taoism, he was very chivalrous in his actions, and Ling Yunpo's actions were undoubtedly in line with Juan van Hegai's temperament. Compared with Anzisu, who only knew how to fight with swords, Ling Yunpo seemed to be more adept at dancing. It was said that he had a good relationship with Lin Yulanzhen and Yuan Jinu. If he made friends with Juan van Hagai next, it would mean that the top sword immortals on the Shushan Foundation establishment realm immortal sword list would be connected by his network of contacts. And the core of this network of contacts was undoubtedly Lin Yunpo, because Nzisu only had a close relationship with him. In the past, although Lin, Juan, and Yuan knew each other, without the top Nzisu, this circle was still not the top. Now that Nzisu has joined, it means that the most promising sword immortals in Shushan are all concentrated in this circle. Taoist practice is extremely particular about the Foundation. Only by standing out in the Foundation building realm can you get enough Purple Mansion secret medicine from the sect, so as to successfully form a higher grade golden elixir, and the subsequent golden elixir realm can become stronger. These are all linked together. Not to mention the current Shushan high-level officials, Sima Changyan had already inquired clearly, whether it was the head of Yuzheng or other powerful elders, when they were still in the Foundation building stage, they all occupied the top few seats on the Immortal Sword list, and they were already familiar with each other and had stable social exchanges. In other words, the future Shushan high-level officials will almost certainly be born from Ling Yunpo's circle. I must also enter this circle. The four people had different thoughts and started to skin and pull out the dead water viper. Unfortunately, the water viper was not at the Jindan stage, so it did not form a demon pill, but its white scales were extra hard. Juan van Hagai used a lot of strength to peel it off completely and weighed it in his hand. It was very light, but the hardness was far beyond steel, and it was a good material for refining inner armor. He also put away the white scales and asked about everyone's physical condition. Just now, they fought with the water viper for a while, and everyone accidentally inhaled some miasma, and now they all practiced to detoxify. These toxins are extremely difficult to deal with and spread quickly. If the true essence touches a little, it will be contaminated. Everyone can only gather the poison true essence in the meridians of the hands as quickly as possible, and then quickly shoot it out from the fingertips. After a round of operation, the true essence consumption is actually more than fighting with the water snake. It can be seen that fighting in this miasma environment is not a good experience. Ling Yunpo once again experienced the benefits of natural sword bones. Because the meridians of the whole body are unobstructed, the process of mobilizing the true essence is extremely smooth, and the miasma toxins are quickly discharged. Even so, because he has now formed a jade palace, and his breathing and refining techniques are advanced, the purity of the true essence is much higher than that of ordinary cultivators. Although some of the true essence was lost, it was not obvious. My blue bar is too thick. After resting, everyone set out again. After the battle with the water snake, everyone also understood the troublesomeness of this miasma, so they were more cautious throughout the process. Even Nzisu began to stay close to Ling Yunpo, fearing that he would be suddenly attacked by some poisonous creature and then inhale too much miasma. After bypassing the deep pool, the water network in front gradually became denser. What was a little disturbing was that these streams in stagnant water were also faintly green, and seemed to carry certain toxins. It seems to be a swamp ahead. Ling Yunpo reminded, if you can't fly the sword, your movement will be restricted if you walk. That's right. Juan van Hagai also echoed, if there are snakes, insects, rats and ants lurking in the swamp mud, I'm afraid they won't even have a chance to react. Aren't you going in? Sima Changyan asked, the miasma ahead seems to be thicker, maybe there are better spiritual herbs in it. Of course I'm going in. Ling Yunpo thought for a moment, and suddenly said, Senior sister, can you use the fire method of activating the Feian sword to burn the direction we are heading in first? I went home early today, so I won't ask for leave, and I will update twice a day as usual. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 348 Doi's Hinran, the crazy swordsman. The swamp filled with green mist suddenly caught fire. The fire spread in all directions along the green flocks on the water surface, and soon burned all the poisons in the mud and the miasma in the air. Sima Changyan and Juan van Hagai were half surprised and half happy to see that Nzisu had such a good effect in opening the way. They were happy that the fire-based Taoism had such a miraculous effect, but they were surprised by the intensity and scale of the flames. If it were to burn on the arena of the Shushan official competition, the opponent would have no other countermeasures except to use the sword-based Taoism to resist. In the Shushan Sword Immortal School, the Sword Immortals who advocated the sword-controlling technique must account for the majority. After all, most enemies of the same level in the world would die if they were stabbed by a flying sword. How to make the flying sword stab faster, more accurately, and more fiercely is undoubtedly the most efficient way to improve strength. As for the Dofar, and that is what the Kumlan monks are good at. After all, they pay more attention to the strength of their cultivation, and their true essence is more powerful. However, apart from the majority of enemies, there is still a small part that the sword control technique cannot deal with. For example, if you compete with the grass-cutting sword fairy Nzisu purely in swordsmanship, the chance of winning is almost negligible. You should know that many Jin and realm people admit that Nzisu's swordsmanship attainments have indeed surpassed the level of the foundation building realm. Now this guy has got a powerful fairy sword, and the Dofar on the sword is so powerful. If you face this guy in the fairy sword ranking competition in the future, it is better to admit defeat directly. If you don't admit defeat, the opponent will first activate the Dofar on the sword, and a blazing fire will rise all over the sky. If you can't stop this Dofar, you can only risk assassination in the fire. With her swordsmanship attainments, it is most likely that she will not succeed. If she could block the Taoist magic, she would have to distract herself to activate it and compete with her in swordsmanship. However, Nzisu is famous for her ability to do two things at once and control a sword with both hands. At the edge of the swamp, two girls stood side by side, looking at the blazing fire in the distance in surprise. What a powerful Taoist flame! Jiangling said with fear. I once dealt with the Phoenix Fairy of Kumlin. Her great light fire covered the sky and the sun. Although the flame of this Shushan monk is inferior to her, it is also 70% of her power. That person is Nzisu, the number one on the immortal sword list of Shushan. Miss A. Ling replied. The number one on the immortal sword list? Which Jing rolled her eyes. Ling was very familiar with her companion. This person has never been a quiet person, although over the years, there has finally been someone who can make her honest, but most of the time she still maintains her evil and unruly nature, and has more bad water in her belly than anyone else. You say. Which Jing suddenly laughed. What if we let the crazy sword immortal deal with them? Ling was surprised. Didn't we agree to lead them to the poisonous dragon? I just think that if we let them deal with the Shushan senior who has lost his mind, it will be more dramatic. Which Jing said with a smile. You really like to do some meaningless things. Ling said helplessly, and secretly manipulated the magic to make the puppet in the distance turn around and run away. In the swamp, the group also picked up all the spiritual medicines they encountered. There are many wood-type spiritual medicines in this miasma. Although most of them are guarded by poisonous creatures, they can't withstand the combined efforts of the four Shushan sword immortals. It can almost be said that they are crushed. Pick out the raw materials that can be made into the Purple Palace secret medicine. If you find all the auxiliary materials later and refine it into a finished product, it can act a total of 40 years of what you cultivation. In order to make up for the initial loss of Ling Yunpo, Julanfen Hai and Sima Chengyan also rushed to the front. As for Nzisu, since she needed the fire method to clear the way, she kept consuming her true essence to activate the Feian sword. Her contribution was unmatched and ranked first. Sister, do you want to take a break? Ling Yunpo suddenly said. Nzisu was about to say no, but Ling Yunpo's eyes stopped her, so she nodded blankly. The reason why she wanted to rest was because Ling Yunpo didn't want her to consume too much true essence, otherwise it would be difficult to deal with if there were any accidents later. Of course, it was not convenient to say this in front of Julanfen Hai and Sima Chengyan, so she had to find a euphemism of rest. Julanfen Hai and Sima Chengyan had no objection, so everyone found a dry broken log nearby, sat down on the trunk to rest, and took the pills to restore true essence. Did you hear any sound? Nzisu suddenly asked. No. Ling Yunpo said blankly at first, but then quickly reacted and jumped off the trunk. He knew that senior sister had awakened her natural sword heart, and her perception in this regard was much more acute than that of ordinary cultivators, so he did not dare to neglect it at all, and just quickly scanned the surroundings with his spiritual sense. Seeing him facing a formidable enemy, Julanfen Hai and Sima Chengyan also stood up immediately and began to vigilantly check the surroundings. Not long after, Nzisu suddenly turned around and slashed forward with the Feian sword with all his strength. Although it was slashed into the air, it seemed to hit something. The Feian sword instantly flew backwards, and several sword ki exploded from the collision point, which was blocked by Ling Yunpo and others. This is, Julanfen Hai was stunned for a moment, and said in shock, Shin Jinwaki sword? No way. Sima Chengyan also said in astonishment. Shinjinwaki sword, the natal sword of Taoist Jizhenren in Shushan 700 years ago, is characterized by the fact that it will differentiate into sword ki after being hit, bypassing the flying sword to block and attack the enemy. But the reputation of this sword is far less than that of Taoist Master Doi. This man is the disciple of the Shushan sect Immortal Changmya, and senior brother Sujian. He was also gifted and talented in the past, and was called the Golden and Silver Sword Immortal of Shushan together with Sujian. Although the Shinjin sword is purple gold and the Hanli sword is silver white, so they got their names. But in the secular world, the value of gold is higher than that of silver, which shows that Shushan's expectations for Taoist Master Doi are actually higher than those of 7 Killings Immortal Sujian. However, when this man was in the great perfection stage of the Wei stage of the Golden Core Realm, which was just one step away from becoming a fetus immortal, he suddenly went out to travel and never returned to the sect. Shushan even sent several immortals to secretly visit many famous mountains and rivers that Doi might go to, but in the end they found nothing. After that, the Immortal Changmya listed Sujian as his personal disciple, and in a sense, he had no choice. If the Shinjinwaki sword is here, then Taoist Yi, everyone looked forward in horror, and saw an old swordsman with a dull expression and lifeless eyes, walking on the water from the swamp in the distance. Junior brother, he muttered, his eyes wandering, and he didn't know where to focus. Your swordsmanship can't win, I'm right. Chapter 349. I can fool my fellow disciples, but I can't fool my senior sister, Master Doi. Ling Yunpa was also shocked when he heard the name mentioned by Juan Fanhai and Sima Changyan. Before participating in the Shushan competition for the first time, when Lin Yulanzan explained the many sword schools of Shushan to him, he also mentioned this name, Master Doi's swordsmanship, which is very different from Sujian's 7-killing swordsmanship. The 7-killing swordsmanship emphasizes strike first. As long as my sword is fast enough, I can quickly seize the initiative of the battle rhythm. However, Master Doi's Ziyuan swordsmanship takes the route of strike back, and its theory is also very mysterious in the style of Kendo. If a sword immortal's sword moves are impeccable at a certain moment, then it must be when his sword is about to come out but has not yet come out. In other words, if the opponent's sword comes out before me, his flaw must be exposed first, and then I can use this flaw to defeat the opponent. To defeat a move with no move, to defeat all changes with the unchanging, is the essence of Ziyuan swordsmanship. Of course, if only the theoretical part was unique, it would not attract the attention of the sword immortals. Shushan has many more mysterious swordsmanship. The real problem is that it is said that Taoist Master Doi and Sujian almost always win every battle, without a single defeat, so that everyone says that Ziyuan swordsmanship restrains Kisha swordsmanship. Of course, at the time, Sujian was not the famous King Luo Peak Master, and Kisha swordsmanship was far from developing to the later stage of great perfection. It was not until Taoist Master Doi disappeared and Sujian knelt in front of the Changmya Immortal for 7 days and 7 nights that his swordsmanship strength began to make great progress. These are actually later stories. As Sujian's direct disciple and biological daughter, Zisu's reaction after hearing this name was the calmest among the 4. When the crazy old sword immortal came from the distant miasma on the water, her face changed slightly. The old swordsman was still far away, but he walked in front of everyone in a few steps, stretched out his hand to catch the flying Shinjinwaki sword, and said, You also think there is something wrong with my swordsmanship, right? Although everyone was confused, seeing that the old swordsman's expression became more and more ferocious and angry, Sima Changyan hurriedly said, Senior Ziyuan swordsmanship is the best in the world, and the Shushan fellow disciples all highly respect your swordsmanship. Then tell me, what is the second move of the 14th style of Ziyuan swordsmanship? The old man roared angrily. Sima Changyan. He just stood there in a daze, and saw that the old man's face suddenly darkened, and said, You're indeed a liar. You also think that my Ziyuan swordsmanship is useless, right? Then let me show you the power of my swordsmanship. As he said that, he suddenly activated his true energy and stabbed Sima Changyan with the Shinjinwaki sword. Sima Changyan hastily blocked with his sword, and as expected, the flying sword was directly shaken away, and dozens of sword ki were generated at the place where the metal and iron collided, and concentrated on him. Fortunately, he also knew the two-handed sword control technique, so he had to control the second flying sword to shoot out, trying to block those sword ki, but he saw the Shinjinwaki sword flying from another direction. Sima Changyan knew that he was no match for him, and was about to change the path of the flying sword to intercept the Shinjinwaki sword first, but he saw a black light inserted from the side and intercepted the Shinjinwaki sword. Ling Yunpo used the unity of man and sword, plus the hardness of Qingping sword and Tianxing sword bone, but he was still unable to compete, and was directly chopped away by the Xin Jinwaki sword. And this attack generated dozens of sword ki, which shot again towards Sima Changyan, who was closest. Sima Changyan almost vomited blood. Although the other party was kind enough to save him, it was really a waste of time. He was too lazy to resist and simply flew back quickly on his sword. Juan Fanhai's Kantai sword also shot out at the right time to intercept some of the sword energy for him. Fortunately, these sword energies did not multiply. The Xin Jinwaki sword paused slightly, and the old sword immortal turned his head, his eyes widened, and even bloodshot in his eyes. He shouted, 7 killing sword techniques. Okay. Then let's have a good fight. Before he finished speaking, the Xin Jinwaki sword had turned around and shot rapidly in the direction of Ling Yunpo. Ling Yunpo's expression did not change, or he had expected this result before he made his move. I have scanned and confirmed it. Kunlun Mirror said in the Sea of Consciousness, he really only has 1 soul and 1 spirit left at this time. Mortals have 3 souls and 7 spirits. If only 1 soul and 1 spirit are left, it is basically difficult to have normal consciousness, so they will appear crazy. Yeah. Ling Yunpo said in a deep voice. Taoist Master Doi is a great perfection in the Golden Core realm. If he can still maintain normal consciousness, then Ling Yunpo has no other way to deal with this person except to kneel down and beg Arjun to help him escape. However, Ling Yunpo is different from Wei Dongliu. The latter has no close fellow disciples. Jianglin and Wenyang dare not ask questions, so he can use Arjun to cheat in an emergency. But exposing Arjun's ability in front of Juan Fanhai and Sima Changyan is too risky. Who knows what these 2 people will say to the head of Yuzhi after they go back? It is better to teleport and run away, and let these 2 people be silenced by the crazy sword immortal. What should senior sister do? In a flash, Ling Yunpo has figured out all the complicated relationships. The most suitable plan at present is to pretend to sacrifice himself to lead the crazy sword immortal away, and call on others to escape quickly. As long as he leaves Juan Fanhai and Sima Changyan, he can use all kinds of flexible means at the bottom of the box, such as the 5 elements divine light and the 5 thunders righteousness. If it doesn't work, he will throw away his face and ask Arjun to open the divination again, use illusion to fix the crazy sword immortal, and then teleport himself away. Later, he can make up a story that he escaped from death. As long as no one sees it, he can still make up whatever nonsense he wants. He can also use Juan Fanhai and others' favors and create a glorious image of selflessness. It is simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'll let him away. He shouted to the distance, while stepping on the thunder sword and retreating backwards, his expression tragic and resolute. You go back to the mountain to get help. Juan Fanhai and Sima Changyan were about to come over for support, but they were stunned on the spot when they heard the words, and then turned around and fled on the sword without hesitation. Neither of them is someone who would dwell on love affairs. Rational analysis shows that even if all 4 of them were tied together, they would not be able to defeat this instant Taoist Master Doi. Since junior brother Lin is willing to sacrifice himself, we naturally cannot live up to his efforts. We must report Taoist Master Doi's whereabouts back to Shushan, and then come back to rescue junior brother Lin, his body. Seeing the 2 turn around and leave, and seeing the synchronization value of the unyielding character rising, Ling Yunpo suddenly felt extremely relieved. Very good, my plan is simply perfect. Slightly turning his eyes, he saw Nzisu and Feian's sword directly merge into one, and the sword light almost skyrocketed several times, rushing straight towards this side at full speed. Ling Yunpo's move suddenly fell to the bottom again. TSK. I seem to have missed something. I have to think of a way to trick senior sister in a way. Qingping's sword quickly came back to rescue, and once again slashed against Xin Jinwaki's sword. Although the sword was intact, the true essence and power on the sword was very different, so the Qingping sword was directly shaken away again, and the power was not released until it was dozens of feet away. At the moment of the clash, dozens of sword ki emerged from the Xin Jinwaki sword, with a color like rolled silver and a luster like pure gold, shooting towards Ling Yunpo densely, and the speed was even faster than the Leki sword he was using with all his strength. Ling Yunpo was about to activate the sword method of the Leki sword to perform a difficult mid-air spin to block, but he saw that Nzisu, who was one with the sword, had already arrived beside him, and the Hanli sword shot out rapidly from his sleeve, turning into a clear and sharp frosty white cold light, which quickly blocked the sword ki and dispersed it. Senior sister. Junior brother. The 2 shouted almost at the same time. They looked at each other in bewilderment, and then they shouted in unison again. I'll hold him back. You go first. You go first, I'll deal with him. Chapter 350. Double sword attack, escape successfully. Rationally speaking, Ling Yunpo absolutely cannot deal with the crazy Taoist Master Doi, even with Nzisu. If Senior Sister stayed to help him, basically one more person would die. So it would be better to let Senior Sister go first, which is a truth that even a 3-year-old child knows. However, is Senior Sister a very rational person? Thinking of this, Ling Yunpo finally realized what he had missed in his previous thinking. He missed Senior Sister's unreserved luck for me. Xin Jinwuki sword slashed again like thunder, but was intercepted by King Ping's sword and Fei Yan's sword. Ling Yunpo and Nzisu both used their full strength at the same time, and their true essence surged, and finally barely caught the blow. Then the immortal swords on both sides were repelled at the same time. King Ping's sword and Fei Yan's sword were thrown out, and Xin Jinwuki's sword was also repelled several feet, and countless sword ki appeared out of thin air, attacking the two people rapidly, and were blocked by Lei Jian and Han Lai's sword. Sister, he doesn't have a second sword. Ling Yunpo said hurriedly. Contain the Xin Jinwuki sword. Nzisu also said quickly, be careful of the derived sword energy, and wait for an opportunity to assassinate his body. Okay, I'll contain it. Ling Yunpo responded immediately. Although the two swordsmen are on par, Ling Yunpo is also very clear about his advantages. His root bone is stronger than that of the Senior Sister, and the hardness of the King Ping sword is also higher than that of the Fei Yan sword. In the final analysis, it is more durable. On the contrary, although Nzisu was not as good as him in root bone quality and immortal sword attributes, she has more experience, more acute perception, and is better at grasping the assassination opportunity at that moment. From the perspective of learning from each other's strengths and weaknesses, he should also contain it himself and create an assassination opportunity for Senior Sister Anne. Okay, you have to be careful. Nzisu agreed without hesitation. But Ling Yunpo knew that once he showed a decadent state that he could not contain, the Senior Sister would definitely give up the assassination at the first time, and instead desperately attack Taoist Master Doi to create a chance for himself to escape. Therefore, whether he could restrain Doi was the key to whether his Senior Sister could complete the assassination. King Ping, you have to fight to the death. Ling Yunpo said in a low voice. Master Sword Master, go ahead. King Ping's sword also said in a deep voice. King Ping, what's wrong? You should say it this time, I'm willing to die for Master Sword Master King Ping sword. It's too unlucky to die for Master Sword Master. It said with a smile, why not say I wish Master Sword Master a victory? Whatever. Ling Yunpo stared at Doi, only to see that the other party maintained a kind of cold, chilling smile, and said softly, what do you think? Is my Ziyuan swordsmanship more powerful, or is your Qixia swordsmanship better? Ling Yunpo was so angry that he laughed. If you have the guts, why don't you suppress your cultivation to the foundation building realm and then fight us? However, it is obvious that Taoist Master Doi, who has lost 2 souls and 6 spirits, must not have normal thinking ability. He did not even recognize that he and Nzisu are Su Jian's disciples. He just desperately looked for someone to attack. According to Taoist classics, even if one loses 1 soul and 1 spirit, he will become stupid and foolish. Taoist Master Doi seems to be able to communicate, but in fact, I'm afraid that only a stubbornness is left to support his broken soul. Except for his intact body, he is almost the same as Sun Sword Master Aang Zhao. This stubbornness that supports Taoist Master Doi seems to be to surpass the 7-killing swordsmanship, so no matter what, he will not let me and my Senior Sister go. Be careful. Kum Linjing suddenly shouted. Ling Yunpo's pupils suddenly shrank, and he saw that the Xin Jinwuki sword almost turned into a purple-gold stream of light and stabbed towards his head. In a flash, he had to pull the nearest Li Zi sword over and hastily blocked it in front of him. The thunder sword screamed, and then was shaken away by the Xin Jinwuki sword, almost spinning and flying into the sky. Fortunately, with the help of the thunder sword's active blocking, Ling Yunpo had already seized the opportunity to call back the King Ping sword, which was farther away, and killed the sword energy generated nearby in a few strokes, and then quickly launched the sword method. Green mist covers the Kan Mountains. The fog rose, and all non-water Taoist methods were half as powerful in the fog, and the enemy could not see in the fog, and the spiritual consciousness could not be deployed. It can be said that it was an extremely powerful Taoist method used for containment. However, what kind of person is Taoist Doi? He did not hesitate at all, but relied on his previous impression and shot the Xin Jinwuki sword again in the direction of Ling Yunpo. Ling Yunpo could see clearly from this side. Since the swordsmanship of Jin Dansenren was too fast, he would definitely not be able to dodge. How could the speed of the physical body be faster than the flying sword? He could only block it with the kingpin sword. This block exposed his position, so Taoist continued to manipulate the Shinjinwaki sword and launched a series of sword techniques to pursue him, making Ling Yunpo stretch to the limit and almost shaky his defensor. Fortunately, the thick fog restrained non-water Taoist magic, so the sword energy generated by the Shinjinwaki sword during the collision was also severely weakened. It was easily solved with the recalled Lady Jian sword, so Ling Yunpo didn't have to split his attention to deal with it. While he was struggling to hold on, Zisu had already pulled out the Hanlai sword and quickly wandered around the edge of the fog. If she entered the thick fog, since she was not the master of the Kingpin sword, her consciousness would also be suppressed. Therefore, even though she was anxious, she had to suppress the urge to rescue her junior brother and grit her teeth to find that position of Taoist in the thick fog. Finally, her eyes were stern, and the cold sword and the flying smoke sword shot out at the same time, attacking Taoist Master Doi in the fog from two directions, which was the dragon and tiger fighting in the seven-killing swordsmanship. The flying smoke sword was faster, piercing the opponent's throat directly, which was the killing move of this swordsmanship. If the opponent blocked it, then the killing move opportunity would be transferred to the cold sword that was launched later. Sure enough, Taoist Master Doi laughed wildly a few times, quickly pulled back the Shinjinwaki sword, and turned around to chop the Feian sword that was stabbing at him. The Feian sword was shaken away while spinning, but the surface of the cold sword was frost-covered, and the cold light was flowing. Zisu had already silently recited the deep ice is 3 feet deep, and the snow covers thousands of miles, urging the Taoist method of trapping the enemy on the cold sword. The water vapor in the fog that originally surrounded Taoist Master Doi instantly turned into thick frost, freezing him from head to toe. Ling Yunpo no longer hesitated, threw the frost sword into the air, and then became one with the sword and flew away quickly. Zisu also took the opportunity to pull back the Feian sword, which also turned into a dazzling sword light, and chased Ling Yunpo. The two of them ran for only 5 or 6 breaths, and Taoist Master Doi, who was bound by frost, was suddenly shocked, and frost and snow fell all over his body. How could the sword method activated by the foundation building realm be able to trap this Taoist master who had reached the great perfection of the golden core realm? Good. 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 Taoist Master Doi was full of anger, and he shouted good 3 times in a row, and no one knew what he was saying. He turned and headed in the direction where Ling Yunpo and others fled, and then his body swayed, and in a flash he crossed a distance of dozens of feet and chased them directly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.